Hey, and welcome to Book Club with Bay. I am Bay, and this is Bay. Say hi, Bay.
Hi, Bay.
And today we are talking about Bloodlines, the first book in the Bloodlines series, which is the spin-off sequel series to Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm very excited. I love this book. Well, I love this series. I love Richelle Mead.
So our first order of business is going to be rating.
Yeah, mine is a Brekkie Sunrise crepe, which is a crepe that was in a crepe store, and it had, like, it's obviously bacon, eggs, hollandaise, and it's crepey, and it's yummy, and it's sunny and bright and food.
Addie and I had we ate Papa John's and we have one of their cookies, and I like their cookies, and so that's what I'm going with.
Papa John's cookie.
Yeah, why not? It was around, and I'm not that creative today.
Yeah, we briefly touched on this. Like I mentioned this in the last book, like the last stream for Vampire Academy, and I was saying about how this series has a much more sunny feel to it, and we were just discussing it before as well. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, because it's in Palm Springs. Vampire Academy, you spend a lot of time in Montana, you spend time in Pennsylvania, you spend time in Russia, Siberia, and
Virginia.
Virginia, and most of the time you are up and about at night. And here, most of it takes place during the day, and
they're on a human schedule here, and I think I don't think it's just coincidence as well. I do think that she wanted a completely different tone for this series.
I think so too, and it really does have a different tone to it, and I like it because, honestly, after spending, I would say 4 out of the 6 Vampire Academy books, because 2 through 4, or at least 2 through 4, and part of 5, I was pretty much in tears reading the books. So after spending that much of the series crying, I am perfectly happy to just be in bright sunny land and not worry about whether or not I'm going to sob, because I don't really want to cry. I'm good. I don't feel like it.
I mean, this series does have some teary moments, but as a whole, though, it is a much brighter series than Vampire Academy. And one of the different feels as well, we briefly touched on this before the stream as well, was Vampire Academy was solidly YA, whereas this one goes into more what new adult should have been.
Yeah, so just to sort of give some background on what we mean here, there are different age categories, obviously, of books. You have things like middle grade, which is, your standard kid chapter books, up to things like the Chronicles of Narnia is a really good example of a mid-grade book. We still need to do Cirque du Freak. I love those books so much, and they're such good books. I think we talked about doing them, but
yeah, they're on the list.
They're on the list, and I love those books so much. They're a lot of books.
They're on the ever-growing list.
Yeah, there's 12 of those books. They're just really good. Anyway, so we're definitely gonna have to do just a month of power reading. Anyway, so those are good middle grade books. I would even say Cirque du Freak is upper middle grade. So there's even little individual categories of middle grade because of how quickly kids advance. But then there's YA, and within YA there's the younger YA where you would be 13, 14, and then the older YA, which is where Vampire Academy sits for 16 to 18 target audiences. And then there's adult. And so adult is once your characters are above 18 and they're out of high school, everything above that is adult. But new adult was supposed to be the category for college, so 18 and up to like late 20s, you know, like the age where, sorry.
It was the getting your shit sorted as an adult genre.
Yeah, so like you could still have those coming of age stories and stuff, and like stories that still make sense like to YA books, but in an older context, because there are still arcs that make sense in both YA and the new adult context, but they would manifest differently. Because, you know, new adult it's like that's like a transition period, like as every age group is, but you know what I mean. And so your 20s are distinctly different from your 30s. And
so like one thing I found in adult, like you stated, adult books, like for example, Mercy and everything, she's got her shit sorted, and the series is about shit that happens around her life, but she's not doing a lot of self-discovery anymore.
Right. Like you're not going to
adult books don't really have the self-discovery moments.
Right. Like you're not going to have any major personality changes or anything like that where like you're really going to change how you interact with people. Though, and we talked about this last time, your self-discovery or whatever is going to come with how you interact with other people, not with how you interact with yourself, basically. And that's basically the major difference. And we were talking about that and how you could develop the characters around everybody. We were talking about this with Addie when we were talking about House of Night. And so in new adult, in like the age group of like your 20s, you know, your late teens, early 20s, and your mid 20s, you still definitely have room for like those self-discovery stories, but they don't read, especially to older audiences. As adult, they still read as YA, but they wouldn't read to a younger audience as YA because they read as older than them because it is. So it's in like this weird middle category, which is why everybody wanted it to be new adult. What happened was that authors came in and they were like, so porn, right? And everybody was like, what? We didn't agree to this. And then all of a sudden, new adult became porn. And so now we don't have a new adult category. And it's just like this weird no man's land where there are no books in that category except Livescraft. It's the only one.
And just to answer Soul of the Dragon's question, what if your main character is actually, can you just put that up on the screen? That'll be easier. With something like that, it all depends on how it's written. Like a while ago, I read a book series where like in between each book there's like years time jumps. But in the first book, the main character was 8, but it was an adult book.
Yeah,
it was written for adults, but the main character in the first book was 8 years old.
Yeah, so like just to give an example, Stephen King, for example, has younger characters. Nobody would argue that his books are mid-grade. Another example I can think of is that my favorite author, Mark Lawrence, his first trilogy, in the first book, the main character is both 10 and 14 because of that you hop back and forth between him being 10 and 14 in the book. And in no way, shape, or form could you argue that that is YA or whatever. So you're never going to have a mid-grade book where I won't say never, but I can't imagine how you would do it where the character's an adult, but you can absolutely have an adult book where the main character is a toddler. You could totally do that. So that's not a hard and fast rule. So yeah, like that's totally possible. But as far as like those categories go, then adult can be anything. But you know, it's the younger categories.
Yeah, with the thing is as well, like the biggest thing between genres is the writing style, but one thing that adults can do is they can still relate back to when they were a younger age, whereas a 13-year-old is going to have a harder time relating to a 30-year-old. So
Exactly.
adult books can go down in age, with the protagonist, but it's all. Like you were saying, I can't think of a single example where the protagonist is older than the target audience in younger.
Yeah, because it's also just not really appropriate either.
Yeah, I mean,
because also the younger you go, the less appropriate it becomes.
Yeah, well, I guess like when you go to, like, for example, like little kids' books, like you might have a story about the cranky old man who found joy in the world type thing.
Well, yeah, like little
That's
fables and stuff. Yeah, that's different.
Stuff like that. But in terms of actual novels, like chapter books and everything like that, yeah, generally the protagonist is going to be either the same age as you are or younger.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah. Whereas for adult books, it can be anything. So yeah. And like another one, Jay Kristoff, his books he has a series that's adult, but the main character is 16. And yeah. So it can be anything. So because also like when you have main characters that are younger, like you just said, it's going to come down to tone. It's going to come down to content. Content's a big thing. It's also going to come down to writing style. So those are the big things that it comes down to. Content being either sexual, violent, or otherwise.
Yeah. So even though this series they're in high school at the moment, but the thing is, Sydney and Eddie, they've graduated high school.
Well, they're 21 Jump Streeting it right now.
Yeah. Actually, that was the other thing I was going to say about this as well, because we're talking, I think, in the last House of Nightstream as well, like when it comes to pop culture references, if you're going to do ones that relate to the world around you currently, then you need to be consistent with your timeline. If you don't want to date your book but still have a pop culture reference, then you need to go with the more classic ones. And this book actually does it. Like Sydney says to Adrian in this one, are you coming to school with us? And he's like, I'm not 21 Jump Streeting it with you guys. That's a timeless reference because 21 Jump Street's from, I think, the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I know they redid it with movies, like in the last decade, but in general, a 21 Jump Street reference has been, like, they've been getting made for like 30 years.
Yeah, and like everybody knows what that means.
Yeah. It's a classic. It's a classic pop culture reference.
Yeah, and everybody knows that that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So that's how you do it if you don't want to have inconsistent timelines.
Yeah. Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So I guess we should do characters because.
Yes, there's a fair few characters in this. Yep. So we've got our protagonist, Sydney. She was in Vampire Academy. She's the alchemist. And where she starts off in this is she's been suspended, I guess, from alchemist duties.
Because she's a vampire lover.
Yeah, because she helped Rose and Dimitri in the last Vampire Academy book.
I feel like a traitor for liking Sydney better.
I love Sydney.
I love being in Sydney's head.
Yeah,
I can't help it. Also, though, like, I have a lot more in common with Sydney than I do with Rose. So.
Yeah, so with Sydney, because we do actually get a better, like, because previously we're seeing her through Rose's eyes, and Rose was just like, I think she's starting to like me, but she also kind of hates me and whatnot, but we actually get a lot more layers of that with Sydney. She was homeschooled by her dad, very strict man. Like, if it doesn't serve a purpose, it's pointless to him. Oh, sorry, if it doesn't serve the alchemist purpose, it's pointless to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very hard, like, difficult man to please. He gives her a lot of criticism, even about her weight. Like, the reason why, because Rose has observed in Vampire Academy that Sydney barely eats, we learn why. Her dad more or less said to her, if those unnatural creatures, meaning the Moroi, can maintain size 0 figures, why can't you? So Sydney's got a lot of self-image issues, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's also, while she's quite grown up in a lot of ways, like she's like, okay, like she needs to get everything done. She's very organized, all that stuff. She's very naive because she hasn't really lived.
Yeah.
She hasn't had the opportunity to.
Yeah. She's also very into like history and cars, as we learned from like the previous, but like that's very evident while you're in her head. And for me, that's fun. I have fun with that. I like being there in her head.
Yeah. And one thing that we didn't get too much of from Sydney, but we get more and more in this series, we start to see it in this one. She's a very nurturing person.
Yeah.
Like we start to see it in this because she's there to do a job, which is to keep Jill safe. We'll get into that more when we get into the plot. But she also, without even realizing it, she's going out of her way to not just make sure Jill's safe, but to make sure she's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps on having these things where like she wants to go and give Jill a hug and comfort her, but then she's like, no, wait, she's a Maroi. I can't do that. And this whole book, she's just reminding herself, I am surrounded by Maroi and dampiers.
Yeah, they're evil. They're awful. They're vampires. Bad. I'm bad.
Yeah. And I like it. I like Sydney's journey through this series. It's great.
Yeah. It's because you know what? It's actually hard to write somebody who hates vampires and have it not be annoying.
Yeah.
And it's not really annoying.
No. Because, and I think part of it as well is because we weren't inside her head when she was spending time with Rose and Dimitri, because that actually helped her break down some of those preconceived prejudices already.
Yeah. And like at the same time too, you get like some examples in this book where like you can tell that she's actually genuinely afraid.
Yeah, like with the magic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is Sydney.
Yeah.
And then there's Adrian.
Yep.
Adrian is here.
Yep. So we already know enough about Adrian. I guess biggest thing is just saying where he's at now. He's heartbroken.
Yes.
And he's miserable.
He's not.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's not in Palm Springs by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's all we need to do for Adrian, because we've discussed him a lot already.
Yeah, and then there's Jill, who is Vasilisa Dragomir's half sister, and she is in hiding. We have to keep her safe, so we yeeted her to Palm Springs.
Yeah. So what kicked off this entire series is there was an attack at the court where assassins tried to kill Jill because she's the easier target to Lyssa, and if Jill gets taken out, Lyssa loses her throne, because they haven't been able to change the law yet that a monarch has to have at least one living relative.
Yeah.
Jill is traumatized by the attack.
Yes. And then we also have Eddie.
Yep. Eddie, pretty much the biggest thing with Eddie is he's a lot more vigilant. I mean, he was always vigilant after the events from Frostbite, but he's even more so now.
Yeah.
I guess that's about it for Eddie.
Yeah.
Then there's Clarence.
Yes.
I love Clarence. He's so kooky.
He's a kooky old man.
Yep. So they only have record of one Maroi living in Palm Springs, and he has a feeder on hand, and he has isolated himself from the Maroi world. So they're like, excellent. They've told him some story about how Jill's family are also against the greater Maroi world, and can he assists in them living separately, so can they have access to his feeder, etc., etc. And he's like, of course, I'd love some company, but he's crazy. He thinks there's vampire hunters everywhere. He's lived. He's not quite sane.
And then there's and then there's his son, Lee.
Yes. Lee is 19, so we think. And he says he's going to college part-time in LA.
Yes.
And he ends up having a bit of a thing for Jill.
Yes.
But there's more to Lee than meets the eye. Bum, bum, bum. Then there's Mrs. Terwilliger.
I really hate listening to, like, the only thing I hated about listening to this audiobook is that her name is Miss Terwilliger.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Miss, not Mrs. My bad.
And when you're listening to it, it's Miss Terwilliger. And, like, I know it's a female, but, you know, when it runs together, it's just Miss Terwilliger.
Yeah.
And your brain's just like...
So it sounds like it's Mr.
Williger. Yeah. And it's upsetting. Anyway, that is neither here nor there.
Yeah. So she is Sydney's history teacher. Because also they're hiding Jill at an elite boarding school in Palm Springs because that's literally the last place a Maroi or a Strigoi would want to go.
Yes.
So she's Sydney's history teacher / because Sydney's tested out of all of her language studies because she knows them all. She's fluent in all the languages they offer. She tested out, so she's doing an independent study with Miss Terwilliger as well. So she's effectively become her assistant in writing a book on ancient Greek stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then there's Trey, who is
a football
player.
player.
Yes, he's a football player. He works at the local coffee shop. He is Miss Terwilliger's TA. And him and Sydney have a kind of friendly banter going on. Don't worry, they're never... I'm just going to spoil this now. There never ends up being a love triangle involving Trey.
I like that you specified involving Trey. I'm just like, oh, good.
With Sydney. He gets himself into his own love triangle later on in the series. But Sydney's not involved. They're just...
Is there a love triangle with Sydney?
Yes, but no. Yes, but no. I guess it's kind of technically is, but not really.
What is it?
Well, one, she's not actually... Like, the reader knows about what's going to happen with... Like, I mean, the seeds are already planted in this book, and I've already said this before. Sydney and Adrian. You already start to see it in this book.
Yeah.
But they haven't started to admit or accept yet. So, and she starts dating someone else, but it's also kind of just like blah. So it's like, it's kind of a love triangle, but not really.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, I don't want to go through a love triangle again.
Yeah, no, it's not the same kind of love triangle that we would ordinarily experience. So it's fine.
Because like a well done love triangle is so much work. Like it's nice to read a well done love triangle.
Yeah, like the Royce Dimitri Adrian one wasn't badly done. No,
but that also means that like it takes a lot out of you reading it, and I'm like, I don't want to go through it again. Don't make me do that. Oh, what?
Sydney and Adrian's relationship angst will purely just be related to the fact that it's the most taboo relationship you can think of.
Yeah.
Besides, I guess, any of the secondary relationships in House of Nine. Besides those, it's the most taboo relationship.
And are there any other? Yeah, there's Malachi. Is that his name?
No, it's oh crap! What is his name? It starts with an
Malachi.
Oh,
my brain's like, his name's Maroy. No, it's not.
Oh, friggin'! Just wait. I'm just going up to where they meet him. Give me a second.
Good. SDA doesn't know what his name is.
Oh, I'm having a massive blank too. God damn it. Where the hell? Just get to school already. Sorry, I'm flipping through the book. And I'm waiting for him to get to school.
It's Miss Something, right?
Oh, God. I don't know because
Micah?
Micah, yes. Who is Eddie's roommate and is a dead ringer for Mason, his dead best friend, and personality-wise, they're very similar too, and he has a thing for Jill as well.
Yeah.
There we go. And Sydney's like, oh, no. Human, Mariah, no, Jill, you will not do the date. And Jill's like, okay. But also, I can't, like, you can tell she kind of, you know, she's pleased by his affections.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are all the characters that are important. Or no?
I mean, there's Sydney's dad. He's at the beginning of the book. And
then there's Keith.
Oh, Keith. How the hell did we forget Keith?
Oh, well, we didn't. I didn't forget Keith. I didn't forget him.
I even just read his name.
Keith is a fucking douche. I don't
Yeah,
like him.
so he is the... We're not supposed to like Keith. So Keith is the alchemist assigned to Palm Springs, and he requested Sydney's sister, younger sister Zoe, because she's being trained as the family's backup alchemist, lest Sydney be, you know, because Sydney's older sister Carly just didn't have the skill required.
Yeah. She didn't have, I think it's,
that's the word I was looking for. Aptitude.
Yeah.
So Daddy skipped over her and chose Sydney, and he's training Zoe as the backup alchemist.
Yeah. And
so Keith is missing an eye from an alleged Strigoi attack. Okay. From an alleged Strigoi attack. And he does a cocky wink. He can come off as quite charismatic. Daddy Dearest loves him. And he is a jerk. And we'll get more into it as we do the plot, I guess.
He's a jerky jerk. Okay, one thing I do want to talk about real quick is it was really interesting, and you get this really at the beginning of the book, but it was really interesting to be around this group of characters who kind of not all hate Rose, because they don't all hate Rose, but you're seeing a group of characters who are not near Rose, and you're seeing them see Rose, and it was interesting because, you know, Adrian hates Rose. And
he hates Rose because he loves Rose.
Right. And Jill envies Rose because she feels like she's weak and like she can't fight.
Yeah, but then Jill also has very mixed emotions towards Rose because also Jill's very close with Adrian.
Right.
And she hates how much Rose has hurt Adrian.
Right. And then Sydney has very mixed emotions about Rose in a weird because of the alchemy thing. Yeah,
like she on one hand she's like, you're an evil creature of the night, but also Sydney is very jealous of Rose's confidence and security within herself.
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting because like Rose is such a protagonist. By the end of the book, Rose is like such a protagonisty character, like as she should be. But it's also interesting to see like starting a new series, people who know a protagonist because protagonists are so larger than life. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, do you see kind of what I mean though, like in regards to like Rose's cameo in this book, how like her first line's like, "Oh, be quiet, old man," and it's just like, "Hey everyone, I'm here, it's Rose." Whoop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was such a wink, I guess, to vampire, like, but I mean, it wasn't like, you know, like too over the top, but it was also like you could tell that was her opening line for fan service type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. And one thing as well that I found kind of interesting, that like we know that Jill and Adrian are like, Adrian's always had a very big brotherly affection towards Jill, and she had a crush on him previously. She doesn't anymore in this book. But besides those two, the rest of the core cast from Vampire Academy that have come over here, like Eddie and Adrian have had almost zero interactions in Vampire Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had some peripheral interactions when, like during the last book, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Jill and Eddie, nothing. Sydney was there when they discovered who Jill was, and she was there during Eddie's interrogation after, you know, he killed Amoroy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, she's had no interaction with this group.
Right. So like when she's first like talking herself out of like, or talking herself sort of out of being scared, she's like, the only people I've been around are like Dimitri and Rose, and like I don't know these people. It's fucking terrifying. And like they think I love vampires. Like what the fuck? I don't love vampires. I hate these people, but they think I love vampires.
Yeah. And it's something that it's not until like you're like reading this book with the plan of talking about it that I even actually really thought about that. Like I was just like, oh yeah, like these are all people from Vampire Academy, cool. And like Sydney even mentions that she, you know, she'd never met Eddie or Adrian officially. She had just seen them.
Well, yeah, you don't even think about that though, because you're seeing it all through Rose's eyes, and like Rose knows all these people, so it doesn't enter your mind that they don't know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like that they did that as well. They took some fan favorite side characters for this from Vampire Academy and put them all together. And have fun, guys.
Yeah, because like when you think about it, it's like if you took like peripheral people from like your life, you know, and like threw them all into a room, but like you know them really well, but like they've never met. It's like, oh yeah, you guys have never met. But like I know you, and this is weird now that I think about it.
Yeah, although that can work out sometimes as well. Like when you were here and we went out with like Amy and that, I was just like, I have to go home. You can stay out. Bye. And just left you with my friends. I'm like, done.
You did. That is what happened.
I had to go home and feed my baby. It wasn't.
But it was fine. But it was fine. And now I'm friends with your friends, so it did work out. But like, you know.
Yeah.
And also sometimes like that does actually work, because then there's not like, I don't know, sometimes when you take out the mediator, it's like it forces you to actually.
Yeah, and that's one thing as well, because like I would say like Eddie and Eddie was part of Rose's core group. Jill was a secondary part of Rose's core group. She was the tag along to it. Adrian was always there.
Well, because Jill wound up being more connected to it through Christian.
Yeah. And stuff like that. So like we've taken people from Rose's core people, right, that haven't had a lot of interaction with each other, put them together, and by the end of even this book, but especially by the end of the series, Rose is more like an afterthought to them. Like Sydney's their glue now, not Rose, if that makes sense. And I kind of like that as well, because I think Sydney, like Rose has her faults and she knows that, and Rose is willing to use people if she needs to. Like Rose can be a pretty shitty friend at the end of the day. Like some of the things she dragged Eddie into.
Yeah.
He was happy to do it for her, but also it's like that's a bit unfair. And Rose acknowledged that it was unfair, but also she's like, but I have to do it. Whereas Sydney, I think, is a much better friend to them. And one of the biggest differences as well is Sydney just expects everyone to be better than they are. Like she's like, no, you can be better than you are, so just do it. Whereas Rose is like, well, that's Adrian, you know.
Rose is a little bit less of a sympathetic character in a lot of ways.
She's a very likable character. Like, even for all the things that drive you crazy about her, she's aware, so she's still likable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she's a very likable character, but she's not sympathetic, which is...
She was very sympathetic when Dimitri, you know, but other than that.
Yeah, like she has her moments where she's sympathetic, like with her parents and all that kind of stuff. Like, she has her sympathetic moments, but in general, she's not a sympathetic character. And like, not all characters are built to be sympathetic. And like, that's, you know, and like, that's fine. You know, characters don't need to be sympathetic, and not all characters need to be likable. You know, it's a fine line that you're walking, and you have to think about these things when you're writing the characters. And it's clear that Richelle Mead thinks about these things, because Sydney is a very sympathetic character.
Yes.
Like, you're always 100% on Sydney's side, I feel like. Whereas with Rose, there are times where you're just like, Rose, what the
I can't think about if later on there's times where you're like, shut up, Sydney. But at least in this book, definitely, like, even when like she goes apeshit at Eddie and Jill and everything, I'm just like, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, like, Sydney, like I said, she's just a much more sympathetic character, and it's just because it's her personality and everything. It's really more built into her character.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy reading Sydney, and there's one bit as well, and again, we can go into this more a bit later, but the person that Sydney has found that is the most like her in the weirdest possible way is Adrian. And I think that's why they bond. Like, it's like they're like mirror images of each other. Like, Sydney knows that people just, like, she feels like they're both boxed in by other people's expectations. Hers on the highest end of the scale and Adrian's on the lowest end of the scale.
Mm.
And she can see it in Adrian that he doesn't want to be that person, but because everyone treats him as though he's useless, so he just feels like he is.
Yeah.
And it's good because she has sympathy for Adrian, but she also, and we start seeing this as well, she pushes him. She's like, no, fuck what everyone else says. You can be better, just stop.
Yeah, because like, now that I think about it, like, even Rose treats him like he's useless. She's like, yeah, you are useless, so that's cool.
Yeah, like, and there's an argument that Sydney and Adrian have in this book, where she calls him a victim. And he's like, oh, just like Rose did in the last book. But they were coming at it from two different angles. Like, Rose is just like, oh my God. It felt like it was more just like, stop complaining, get over it type thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas Sydney's like, you're only a victim because you're allowing yourself to be.
Yeah.
Get strong, be better. Whereas Rose is just like, oh, Adrian, always the victim. So, like, even when they say the same thing to him, they're coming at it from two different points.
Yeah, because like, Rose is sort of selfishly calling him a victim because she doesn't want to be confronted with like the things that she's done.
Yeah.
Whereas Sydney's like, you don't have to do it like this.
You can be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that ends up being the thing that draws Adrian and Sydney together. They both see each other for who they want, like who they truly are, not what everyone thinks they are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I guess, actually, just give me 1 second. Sorry.
You good?
Do you want to just maybe start with the plot? It starts with her getting woken up.
Okay, yeah. So the plot starts with Sydney getting woken up, and as she's being woken up, she's panicking because she's really worried about being sent to alchemist re-education, which has you a little bit panicking because you're like, oh, that sounds like super duper fun. And so she is, so her dad's like, you have to get ready. And so she's like, okay, be presentable. So she can't be in like jeans or anything. She has to be in a super nice outfit. So she dresses herself up and she goes downstairs, and she notices that like when she gets downstairs, her sister is not presentable. And so her dad is like, doesn't criticize her, but is upset with her sister. And the alchemists are there, and they're like, we have an assignment for you. And we would normally let Sydney do it, but because Sydney is a vampire-loving freak show, we were thinking that her sister should do it, even though her sister is not ready to do it because she doesn't have enough training or real-world experience to do it, because her sister doesn't want to do the diddly with vampires. Maybe her sister should do it. And Sydney has like a big argument where she's like, no, my sister's not ready to do it. She's nowhere near prepared for it, so let me do it. So eventually she talks them into like letting her do it. And so they decide, yeah, Sydney should do it. And then after that, her sister is like, why would you make me look incompetent in front of people?
Yeah, especially Keith, because Keith is there and he's arguing that Zoe should go and we find out the true reason why later, but his argument is Sydney's not to be trusted.
Right. And Zoe's like, why would you say that? And then from Sydney's perspective, Zoe's basically being abused and Sydney's basically being abused. And so from Sydney's perspective, Zoe's terrified. And so Sydney just doesn't want her in the situation. And so even after they have the argument, you as like the reader are still kind of like, I would still do what Sydney did. Like even after the argument, I'm like, as a sister, I would still do that, even if she was mad at me, because it keeps her away from these people.
Yeah, because more or less, once you're an alchemist, they own you till death.
Right.
And we learn again, and as the series goes on as well, we learn more about the inner workings of the alchemist.
Yeah.
But Sydney wants to protect Zoe from that, because if you're an alchemist, you have no right to a life.
Yeah, and also like Zoe's not technically an alchemist yet, and this would have made her an alchemist. And so she's like, whatever I have to say to keep my sister from dealing with this, I will say. And so if I have to say that like she shits unicorns and rainbows, I'll do it. And so her sister's like, why would you make me look incompetent? And she's like, so you can have a fucking life, you dumb bitch. And like, but not like that, because that would be what Rose would say. But she's, nice about it. And so like, yeah, you get it. You're like, I know it made you look stupid, but also you're not being owned from like the age of 16, because I think that's how old Zoe is.
I think she's 15. She's the same age as Jill.
Yeah, so she's 15. So she would be 15. And also that's the other thing too, is like Sydney's like, she's 15. She can't be sent to watch over somebody. Like they're sending her into a trap. That's the other thing that's going through Sydney's head. So you as the reader are like, I know that like Zoe's upset, but there's no way that she could have been ready for that.
Yep. And it's important to note in this as well that because obviously Sydney's training discretions in the last book get brought up. She uses the same excuse she used in the last book. She was trying to get a promotion. She was trying to get the glory for herself and so on. And they also re-ink her tattoo, because alchemists have the golden lily tattoo on their cheek. And it's got vampire blood in it and some vampire magic in it, I guess. And that helps them not get sick. It helps them heal quickly, etc. And it's not too important in this book, but as the series goes on, it is important to remember what is in that tattoo.
Wouldn't it, like, real quick, wouldn't that make it, like, hard to be incognito as an alchemist?
They do, throughout most of the book, because also tattoos are against dress code at the boarding school, she does have it covered up with makeup.
Okay.
I don't know why they would have it on their face. I guess it's so they can easily identify each other, because it is a worldwide organization. But I guess it's, just for easy identification, because also it's not, I imagine as well, and the covers help give a better idea of what this tattoo looks like as well. Let me just go back to the cover. I'll see if I can get it to show up on the screen. But it's with like as a metallic tattoo, I imagine it isn't epically obvious unless the light is hitting it correctly. But wrong way. So yeah, there we go. We can see it there. There we go. So that's kind of what the tattoo looks like. But yeah, I imagine it's not the most obvious of facial tattoos, I guess. It's definitely nowhere near as obvious as some of the other facial tattoos we see in this series. But yeah, no, they re-ink Sydney, so they top up her tattoo magic, I guess. And they in this scene as well, Sydney learns that not only is she going to watch over Jill, she has to actually share a dorm room with her. They have to pretend to be siblings.
Which makes her way less eager to do it. She's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yep, so more or less what the structure is going to be is her and Eddie are twins, and they're seniors. And Jill is their little sister, and Keith is their older brother. And then eventually they're like, oh, yeah, this is Adrian. He's our other brother, because he's there too. So that's their family. Like, their family is twins, Jill, Keith, and Adrian.
Yes.
Yeah. And let me tell you, keeping their cover while pretending to be siblings gets more complicated as the series goes on.
Don't Eddie and Jill end up a thing?
Well, Eddie has an epic thing for Jill, which Sydney doesn't click onto until the end of this book. As we see the seeds of in this book, Adrian and Sydney end up, having a thing. Angeline comes in. Angeline comes in at the end of this book. She's one of the killers. The one that fought Rose in the last book. She's their cousin, but and then there's things going on with her as well, and then it all just becomes a big mess.
Yeah.
Luckily, eventually, there's a few humans that become in the know about their situation and everything. So, they see, these relationships playing out between them, and they're fine because they know that they're not actually related. But obviously, if Eddie and Jill, for example, were to decide, oh, let's date, they couldn't date anywhere near school.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks that he's her older brother. So it is going to cause some levels of conflict.
Anyway, so that's the situation. And again, Keith is a douche. He's an epic douche nozzle.
Keith is epically displeased by the decision to send Sydney instead of Zoe like he requested. But then when they're driving back, driving to Palm Springs from wherever the fuck she lives, Utah, he's being over the top nice, which she finds even worse than him being hostile. Because she hates him, and we don't actually find out why. Do we want to just give the spoiler as to why? Yeah,
just do it.
Because Keith stayed with their family for a summer a couple of years prior, and Dad was like, yay, Keith, you're the son I never had, all this crap. Well, Dad pressured Carly, Sydney's older sister, who's about the same age as Keith, to go on a date with him. She ended up reluctantly going on a date with him. He tried to, get physical. She said no. He didn't take no for an answer, and he did a rape. And only Sydney knows. Carly told Sydney afterwards and made a promise not to tell anyone. So Sydney absolutely loathes Keith. She didn't like him before this happened. Now she loathes him. And Keith knows that Sydney knows. So I think, and like it's hinted at, like that he had done something, and I can't remember what it felt like the first time I read this book, so you'll have to tell me. Did you suspect what happened prior to us finding out what happened?
I don't know. Like, I knew that Keith was, like, sleazy, but I don't know that I was thinking about it that hard.
Okay.
But I also don't think about things that hard when I read them, because I don't read things with looking for plot twists in mind. The only thing that I was the only thing, like, unless you, like, throw it in my face, I don't really look for it. Like, with Lee, I was like, the second we met him, I was like, the fuck is up with this motherfucker? Like, I was like, a thing that I have noticed on the first page. That is, never happens. So I was paying attention to that. And then Keith, I was like, he's gross. And so, like, I knew he was awful. But other than that, like, I don't really look for things. I just read. And I'm like, you'll tell me when you want to. And then usually, like, when I reread stuff, I start to pick shit up. So, like, I'm a very chillaxed reader and like, also watcher of things. And maybe it's also, like, watching theory videos that have made me even more relaxed, because I'm like, if I miss shit, game theory will do something about it, and I don't have to pay attention.
Yeah. So they get to Palm Springs, and they have to get Sydney. Oh, they get Sydney her fake ID, her new last, because her actual last name is Sage, like her name's Sydney Sage, but for the purpose of their undercover mission, they're all adopting the surname Melrose, which leads to an amusing thing later.
Yes, it does.
It's the only reason I'm mentioning it now, but they get their fake IDs, and Keith goes and gets Sydney a car, so then that way he doesn't have to do any of the driving around, because Sydney has to take Jill to her feedings at Clarence's house. And she's very displeased at her car. She's very displeased. She gets a Subaru wagon, and it's brown, and she's displeased, and she's a coffee addict, and she loves cars, so which is also why she doesn't like the Subaru wagon, because it's not at all a cool car at all. Like, Sydney's heavily into muscle cars as well. Like, those are her dream cars. And so she's like, I guess I'll name it Latte, in the hopes that, you know, my love of coffee will make me love the car.
It doesn't.
Oh, she gets very protective of the car as time goes on.
Well, she does, because it's a car.
Yeah, and she's a control freak, especially when it comes to her car. No one's allowed to drive her car except her. I think she eventually lets Eddie drive it, eventually. Yeah. But he has to earn her trust before. And then they go to Clarence's house to meet up with Jill. At this stage, I think all Sydney knows is that obviously Jill's going to be there. There's going to be a Deppy and another Moroi.
Yes, but she doesn't know whomst.
Yeah.
But then when she finds out that, like, Adrian Ivashkov is there, she's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I love
her reaction. She's like, it's going to take all the alchemists to take care of Adrian Ivashkov. What the fuck?
But I also love, though, because, like, Sydney and Keith rock up at the door, they knock, and Adrian opens the door because he was going out for a smoke, so it was just coincidental timing. And she's like, oh, we haven't actually met, but I saw you last month. I'm Sydney, you're Adrian, we know that. This is my colleague, Keith. And Keith is, like, freaking the fuck out because there's a Moroi in front of him. And the only Moroi he's had interactions with is Clarence. And Adrian just likes to fuck with him, like, from the get-go. Cause
it's really funny.
I think Adrian just read his... I don't even think he would have had to read his aura. He would have just seen, like, this is a guy I can fuck with, why not, type thing. And So Adrian's like, oh, they're waiting for you, go on in. And then he whispers in Keith's ear, if you dare, and does like a evil villain laugh and walks off.
That's the other, you know what, the other thing that I noticed about this is that in the books, when you're in Rose's head, you know so much about like what Adrian's up to as far as his powers go and like auras and all that kind of stuff, and like what everybody's auras look like and everything. And you know nothing about anything. And so like I actually felt weirdly blind in this book because we don't have any like inside spirit knowledge. And so it was actually kind of weird, like to have Adrian there, but to not have any of his knowledge with us. So that was something that was interesting.
Because also Sydney's very skeptical of spirit as an element in general. She's like, look, I've witnessed stuff of it before, but I'm also kind of like doubtful about the whole aura thing and this and that thing.
Yeah, she's like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I think it's more denial than actual like, that's bullshit.
Yeah, she's more like, not a fan. She's not a fan of the whole magic thing anyway, but then like spirit is so far out there because it takes people back from the dead, and she's like...
Yeah, and it's a lot more mentally invasive, and she's just like, let's just stay clear of that element, please. So they go on in. She goes on in. She sees Jill. She sees Eddie, and then she sees Abe. And she's
like, for fuck's sake. Actually, no, she's not. She's like,
she's terrified. And again, we're starting to get hints, but I think on the first read, though, it reads more just like she doesn't. I don't know. Did you get the hints that Sydney had anything to do with Keith's eye?
I don't know that it was necessarily that. I got the hint that, like, I mean, obviously you know that Abe has something on Sydney.
Yeah.
And that, like, something's up. So, like, I knew that there was a good reason why she was scared of Abe and why she didn't want Abe there. But I didn't know what it was, again, because, like, I don't read that deep. So, like, I know what's right in front of me. And so I knew she was scared of Abe for, like, reasons, and that she didn't want people to know what her involvement with Abe was.
Well, we'll just spoil this bit as well, because that reveal happened in this book, Thought so. I'm just having a mental blank now because I already knew it, so I don't remember. So part of the main reason why Sydney is indebted to Abe and helped Rose in the last book and everything like that, it wasn't just he got her moved to New Orleans. He actually staged a quote-unquote Strigoi attack, which was actually just either him or his henchmen. And I'm guessing they must have been something. Or they knocked him out before they took his eye, whatever. But they removed his eye. That was Abe. So that's why Abe has an open-ended, bargain with Sydney where he can just make him do whatever.
Yeah, and so when she sees him, she freaks out. And
especially because Keith is right next to her.
Yeah.
And then Rose is there as well. And Sydney's like, oh, Rose, are you here too? And she's like, no, but I should be. And they're like, but what about Lissa? And she's like, I know. I can do it both, even though they're in different states, okay? They're like, no, you need to go back to Lissa. She's like, fine, but I'm just here making sure everything's fine. So that was Rose's part in this book.
Yep. And, like, I was pretty okay with that. Like, at the point I was like, Rose can leave now.
Yeah, she's in later books. In some of them, she has a relatively major role in them. But it's in the context of, for example, when Rose, Lissa, and Eddie broke into prison, like the prison's free Victor. Even though Eddie had a major role in that, it was still kind of secondary to what was actually happening. That's probably the most Rose gets involved in these books. She's like a secondary major person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we meet Clarence and Lee, and Keith is like, looks at Lee and he's like, who the fuck are you? And who the fuck is this guy about Adrian? Why is he staying here? Why are you here? Sydney's just like, oh, I guess he's freaking out that there's more Moroi here than the one that there used to be.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, I guess we better get to school then. So, fucking hell train, fuck off.
It's a large train.
Oh god. Is it really to do the tooting, like the choo-chooing? Like, there's no need for that. So
Hi.
Hey, kiddo.
Hi, every kidder.
So Sydney, Jill, and Eddie all head off to school. Oh wait, Sydney goes outside, I think, just to get away from Keith or something. And she overhears Abe talking to Adrian, and Abe saying, you need to be here. You don't have a choice. You have to stay here. I want you to watch things, watch what's happening type thing. And we're all just like, okay, that's weird, but cool. And they ask about the attack, and everyone, like Jill, Rose, Eddie, and Adrian, they all just kind of clam up. And they're just like, someone tried to hurt Jill, but Eddie stopped them, and it's all good. But Sydney's like, there's something else going on here, but we don't know what yet. And yeah, so they all go up to school. And how the school is set up is there's 3 campuses, each are about a mile apart from each other. The middle campus is where all the classes are. The other 2 campuses are, one's the boys' dorm, one's the girls' dorm. And Eddie is displeased because he's like, how the hell can I protect Jill from 2 miles away? This is ridiculous. I demand a recount type thing.
Yeah. And I kind of don't blame him, because isn't he her, is he her guardian?
Unofficially.
So.
Because Eddie's still officially on probation or suspension of some sort.
Yeah. So like, how is he supposed to do his job?
Well, their reasoning is, 1, no one knows she's there. 2, no one would ever think, Jill's missing. Where would she be? Oh, at a boarding school with almost no protection in Palm Springs. Like, that's the main thing that they're counting on, the secrecy of where she is.
Yeah.
So, but they resolve that issue at the end of this book anyway. So, but yeah, so Eddie goes up, checks out their room, and then he goes up to his room. Jill and Sydney are painfully aware of how little stuff they bought compared to everyone else, and Sydney's like, wow, do we stick out? This is suspicious. I guess we need to go buy more stuff. Like, what the hell? Next day they have orientation and all that crap. They meet Micah, who from the get-go obviously seems to have a soft spot for Jill. And one of the things that Jill deals with throughout this book, and we start to see it here, is the fact that she's, like, at St. Vladimir's, the fact that she's tall and really skinny and really pale and all that stuff, she was a Moroi, you know, that was a normal thing. Whereas in a human school, she's visibly very different from almost every other girl there.
Yeah, like she's very tall and very thin.
Like she'd be what, like 5'10"?
Yeah.
At 15, which means she still has room to grow. She's a size 0, and she's like the whitest shade of white. So, yeah, she, especially in Palm Springs, California, just being pale alone would make her stick out, let alone the fact that she's taller than every other girl there and probably the skinniest girl in the school as well. So that's one thing that Jill deals with a lot in this book, because she, like any teenage girl, feels uncomfortable when they feel like they stick out, and Jill definitely sticks out.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so they more or less do orientation. Sydney tests out her language subjects because she knows them all. And then she goes for her fitting. And this is the first that we start to see Sydney's, like in this series about Sydney's weight issues. Sydney asked for a size 2 uniform, and it doesn't fit her correctly, so she has to have a size 4, and Sydney's very upset that she has to wear a size 4. Which, let's be honest, is still tiny.
Yeah.
And then they have class the next day again. So they start class. Jill's a bit off that morning, and Sydney's like, I guess she's just nervous. Sydney goes to class. She didn't have time to cover up her tattoo. And everyone's like, she meets a couple girls she sees a couple girls that she met the day before. I think it was actually the day before, but they were like, oh, is your tattoo, is that what Nevermore's doing this year? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just a tattoo that I got back in South Dakota, which is where they're saying they're from. Yeah, I don't know what you're on about. And they're like, okay, no worries. We'll. And then she keeps on getting weird questions about her tattoo that day, because she had forgotten to cover it up. And people think that it is making her smarter, because in her classes, every question asked, she can answer. And that's just because Sydney's a study freak. But everyone thinks that her tattoo is making her smarter, and Sydney's really confused about why.
Yeah.
We also meet Miss Terwilliger, who keeps on getting people's names wrong. Like, she calls a boy named Stephanie. Bless. And she thinks Sydney's name is Sydney Melbourne. Sorry, Melbourne. Excuse you. I really like that though. She's like, because Sydney answers the question. She's like, who are you? And she's like, Sydney. And then she's like, Sydney Melbourne. You don't sound Australian. And then she hands the clipboard to Trey, and she's like, "You better read the attendance record, because if I keep at it, I'll just keep turning boys into girls and nice young ladies into the descendants of criminals." Well, that's one thing I like about the series as well. There's just a lot more of those smaller, little, lighthearted moments.
Yeah.
And Vampire Academy, there wasn't really a lot of the lighthearted moments there. Sorry, I'm eating a chip.
You're good. I forget what happens next.
Yeah, so I think PE. They have PE. And Jill's having a hard time because it's in the middle of the day, like in one of the sunniest places on the planet, and Murray is sensitive to the sun. So Jill's almost dying out playing volleyball. Like, seriously, who the fuck would even, like, if you are in Palm Springs, right, who the fuck would organize outdoor PE in the middle of the day? Like, that's just cool. And Micah,
God, even like when we did PE outside, it was like the worst days of our lives. It was like the worst thing ever. Although when our like a funny story, well, not funny story, but just like real quick. one thing that we did do, especially when our horrible PE teacher from hell got pregnant and then finally, produced offspring and then was off on leave, we got the most lax PE sub ever because all he did was have us walk the track. It was the best. And so what Addie and I would do is we would like just talk about books and like writing. And that was actually how like the old Blackwoods got like brainstormed and written. And today we went through like the old files that we have of Blackwoods, and God, am I going to put those on a thumb drive and bury them in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. No, we should not release them.
No. I think when you say you're going to put them on the thumb drive and bury them in the middle of the ocean, that means you're going to put them up on your website.
No.
Yes. Because I'm guessing that's what Addie wants as well.
I know Addie's like, we should release them. And I'm like,
yeah, well, it's 2 against 1, 2 bays against 1 bay. You have been outvoted.
You have been outbayed.
Yes.
We win the vote.
You get to put them up.
That's not the point.
I'm leaking.
Shut up. I was going to be like, well, they're not on your computer. Yes, they are. Actually, they are on our computer. They're on our shared Dropbox. I was like, they're not on your computer. They're on mine. Never mind. Huh?
8-year-old Dropbox.
Yeah, they're on our 8-year-old Dropbox because they're dated from 2011. That's how old those files are. It's from 2011. Like, God, it is bad. Like, we have highlighted quotes from this. You know what? Tomorrow on the release stream, we should actually read
An excerpt of the OG.
Like an excerpt of the OG. It's so bad. Sorry, that was just
yeah, but you also can take into account, the fact that one, you didn't really know a whole lot about, writing a fucking book back then. And 2, how old were you?
Oh, no. You know what, though? What's really funny about it was, like, when we first found the files and we were going through them, I found them first. And what was funny was that when I first looked at them, I was like, oh, God. And I was expecting to go through, like, the world building stuff and to go, oh, it's bad and it's unusable. But I went through the world building stuff and I was like, it's good. Like, the world building stuff was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. And then I got into the chapters and I was like, how is this? First line, perfectly fine. Second line, and it was all downhill from there. And so it was like, it's like House of Night. Solid idea, terrible execution. And
you know what? You didn't publish the terrible execution.
That's exactly it. Also, we were 14. No, 13 actually when we started it, and 14 as we continued. And then what was funny was like we took the ideas and then we started writing. And like, yeah. Oh, y'all, it's bad. It's real bad. Yeah, Addie, it is bad. It is incredibly bad. But like, I texted her and I was like, have you looked at the OG Blackwoods files? She was like, what? I found them on the old Dropbox we had, like for debate and stuff. And she was like, what the fuck? And then we started looking at them and she was like, no, this isn't that bad. And then we read them out loud to each other, the old chapters. And she was like, this is very bad, but the world building's not bad. And then we had the idea, like, what if we wrote these books, but like as adults with functioning prefrontal cortexes. And the
ability to outline.
And then it happened. And now it's a thing. That's great. But it was just really funny. Like, just going through like the old stuff, it's so funny. Like, because also some of the ideas are just insane. I'm sorry. It's just really funny to look back at it. Because the other thing that I think is actually kind of fun about looking at our old stuff, because we also have other old stuff from when we were that age, is so much of it is fucking crazy, right? Like your imagination is so much more like untamed because you think everything's a good idea and you're like, I'm a genius. And so you just go with it and like you're not afraid of anything. And it's like, I kind of wish that like I still had a little bit more of that like just untamed like you know? Because like
get stoned.
Shut up. And
it brings all that back, I swear. Honestly, if you're ever running short of ideas on a book or something, you either get really drunk or really stoned or whatever. Like, just get rid of all of your inhibitions. Stoned is probably better than alcohol, though, for thinking up ideas. And then you just write them all down. And then when you're sober again, you look through them and you toss out the trash.
Well, that's the thing is like... Is that it's like when you're that age, you're like not afraid of like what are people gonna, you're just like writing and like you're just having ideas and stuff. And I think that's like the beauty of like going through your old stuff is you're like, the writing is bad. The ideas are actually amazing because like they're so off the walls crazy that like once you polish them, they're really creative.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. Like, I mean, you can have an idea of like, you know, a world and whatever, and it like when you just think of it, it's just like that sounds fucking crazy type thing. But but that's when you, especially like if it comes to like urban fantasy or any fantasy really, that's the way it goes. Though, like you try and explain like all of the. Oh, I can remember one that Stixie actually like humored me and let me talk about Harry Potter for a bit. So he was asking me some questions like, well, what about this? And I started explaining to him. He's like, that just sounds insane. I'm like, but it makes sense in the context of the book. You know,
and like
the crazy stuff, as long as you establish it in the correct way and it just happens naturally and flows. Like, for example, so Vampire Diaries. When you start going into like some of the shit in that, like the Travelers and the fucking Siphons and the Gemini Coven and all that crap, if I was just to start spouting out about like the information and the backstory on all these different things, you would look at me and go, you know, like,
well, honestly, a lot of it's fucking like honestly, like, a lot of it on the surface is fucking dumb. But like, you kind of just. But, like, you kind of just need to start from there and you just go with it. And, yeah, it's like when you look back through your old stuff, it's kind of like, yeah, no, Blackwoods is off the fucking wall. Like, and also the world building that we did with it, because a lot of the world building that we did around it, because we did no world building as children, it was none. Actually, Blackwoods, and we should talk about this tomorrow on the stream. Blackwoods was originally set in like this universe, and it was just covens in the universe, and
so it's pure urban fantasy.
Yeah, and so we decided it was more like hidden world fantasy, and so we decided to do like high fantasy, and then I was like, but I don't want to do medieval stuff. It annoys me, and so we were like, and she's like, but I want to do high fantasy, and so we were like, let's do both. And so it's like modern high fantasy, and it's like everybody's like, "Is this high fantasy or mod?" And I'm like, and we're like, "Yes, absolutely."
Yeah, because it's still its own unique world, but it's modern. It's modernized.
Well, yeah, it's like if you put like Lord of the Rings with technology.
Yeah, so it's a little I guess in that sense as well, like. Because also when you think of like a more modern world or a tech-involved world as well, that's not our own. You also think of it sci-fi as well. So it's kind of like sci-fi crossed with fantasy crossed.
I was like, I kind of wanted to have a sort of sci-fi vibe, and she was like, but I want high fantasy, and we were like, let's do both, and so that's what we did, and like that's actually how we write, and it's actually so much fun because whenever we both get conflicting ideas, we don't compromise, we just do both, and it's actually created like. This and the books are fucking insane, but it's really fun, and that's what I really like about doing Blackwoods.
Well, and that's good as well, because then just as well, like when we found out how PC and Kristen do House of Night and everything, I don't know if Kristen is actually involved in any of the outlining at all, or if she's just editing it. Like, she's just editing it. Because it sounded like her only contribution is beta reading, and maybe like she's like, oh, well, maybe something like this could happen. And Casey's like, okay, I'll put that in my notes. And if the characters decide to do it, we'll let them do it.
Yeah, because like for us, how it works is like we write like we kind of like write what we feel like writing, and then like we edit and like we pass it back and forth. And so it comes to the point where like we have both written like half of the book collectively, more or less. Like half the word count is hers, half the word count is mine. We're pretty sure, but we don't actually know. Like we actually have no idea, which I think is the best. I think is like the best course of action when you're co-writing a book. Yeah,
like especially like even if like even if it was more just like you did the world building and the outlining together, and one of you wrote it and the other one went through and changed some of it as well. Even that is good co-writing, but like with what you're doing as well, that makes sense. But like you guys are both involved in all of the process, and so I like part of me is even wondering why the fuck Kristen Cast is even credited.
Yeah, no, you're right, because like if she's just editing, it's kind of weird. Like the way that they describe their co-writing stuff. Yeah, because especially because like we've co-written a book, and you and I have talked about co-writing. You know,
yeah,
and it's
in the way, so we never got around to it.
Well, yeah, but like I don't think that's like off the table though.
No.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we were discussing, I actually still think about every so often. I'm like,
I do too, because I still have the notes.
Yeah, because
they are safe, and I have them.
Do we want to disclose at least the most basic of the concept?
Yeah, go for it.
From memory, because it was like a year and a half. It was before you even started working on Blackwoods that we discussed.
Yeah, it was.
It's kind of inspired by like ancient Greek/Roman religion style world.
Yeah.
And there's something about a second son, and I can't remember, but that's it. We won't.
Well, there. Yeah.
I just remember the second son, but we won't discuss that.
Yeah, because we had started to design like a deity system and everything.
Yeah.
Like together, but like the other thing too is that when it comes to world building and all of that kind of stuff, you know, you both know this because you have both been there with me with like the Rosalie Watson series and my whole thing where I have had to explain it to you guys. Yeah. And now as like I keep going, there are things where sometimes you guys have to be like, okay, back up, because I go a little too far, because there are things in my head that like I forget you guys don't know when I'm talking to you about it. And so you guys have to be like, hold on, back the fuck up, explain this. And then there are also so many people who are like, no, you can talk to me. And I'm like, I literally can't. There's like, we would have to have like a 3-day seminar for me to even be able to bounce ideas off of you. So like there are 2 people in the world that I can talk to about this at this point. And so when you're co-authoring, I can't imagine co-authoring a series where the person didn't help you world build, because the things that have to be bouncing around in your head, you both have to know.
Yeah, and because I also remember as well, like it was like when you had the most basic idea of where you wanted the like what the key events in the Rosalie series would be and everything, and you had an idea of your world, and then you and I were talking, and then you decided you wanted to add stuff to it, and that completely actually changed your outline as well.
Yeah,
and like the Rosalie world, like the Rosieverse started off, it was just going to be the Rosie books, and that's it.
Yeah,
and then as the more you world built, the more it just went.
Yeah, and
now you've got books booked to be written until like your middle ages close.
That's not the point. But like that's just the thing is when you're like, I don't know, like I just don't understand how the casts can co-write if you're not
only one of them's writing.
Yeah, if you're not co-writing, because there's like
I think Kristen might have been involved in the world building.
She would have to be.
I hope so.
Because, like, there were times, because, like, there are, like, look, even when you're both involved in the process, there are times where Addie and I, and we've gotten so much better about this because of the times when this has happened, we make sure now, especially, that we're both like, okay, in your head, where is this? And, like, what does this look like to you? Where are you at with this? Because if we haven't discussed it out loud, there's a good likelihood that, like, I'm picturing it differently than she is because, like, we forget that our brains are not psychically connected. And so you have to talk about those things out loud, too, because, like, you might be imagining something differently. And so we're like, hold on. In your brain, what is, if we haven't explicitly written it down, you know, we might be thinking something different, and that's going to be a problem because we're two different people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, those issues arise and everything. And, yeah, like, co-writing is it's not that it's, like, not easy. Like, obviously, like, writing's not easy, but it depends on, like, who you're working with. So, but it's, like, it's a process.
Yeah. I think we've just gone off on about a 20-minute tangent.
Sorry. It's just, like, a thing.
Yeah.
Welcome to book club. Tangents with Bay.
Yeah. Oh, I lied as well, because the tangent started with PE. Jill wasn't struggling in PE. She wasn't there the first day of school, because PE at this PE is the only class that Sydney has with Jill because it's a multi-grade PE class.
Yeah.
And Jill wasn't there, and Sydney's like, where the fuck is Jill, type thing. And she'd go, at the end of class, she asked the teacher, because, you know, she's not in a position to ask her until the end of class. She asked the teacher, where's Jill? And she's like, I got a note saying that Jill.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
So then Sydney is like, because Sydney has mixed emotions about doing, like, repeating high school as well, because she was homeschooled. And she's like, I don't really want to do high school again, but I guess this is the closest I'm going to get to ever experiencing college, so I guess I'll just, you know, go with it, I guess. And then after PE, she goes to, because she has to go and see the guidance counselor or whatever, to be like, well, to work out what she's supposed to do, because she's not doing a language course. And then the guidance counselor says, you can do an independent study. You just need the teacher to sponsor you. Sydney gets an idea, and she's like, okay, can I get back to you tomorrow about what I want to do for my independent study? Teacher's like, yep, go back to your dorm now because you've got to roam the halls. And Sydney's like, excellent. She goes back to her dorm room, and Jill's there.
Yeah, and then she's like, where the fuck were you? And Jill's like, I got in trouble for being hungover.
And Sydney, I love Sydney's response. Like, Sydney's not just like, well, did you drink? It was like, how absolutely dare they? I was with you all night. You didn't.
Yeah, she's like, what? How could they think that you, an angel, would ever do such a thing? They can't even test that. She's like, I'm going to go raise hell. And Jill's like, no, yeah, Sydney, stop it.
Yeah, she was borderline like, we are going
Cassie.
to Sydney just went, like, Sydney was ready to go off on a crusade.
Yeah, no, Sydney was like, we're going to rally the fucking troops and we're going to go burn down the school. That's what we're going to go do.
Yes, and Jill's like, chill, I just want to see Adrian. And Sydney's like, but why? And Jill's like, I need to see Adrian, damn it. And Sydney's like, are you two a thing? Aren't you too young for him? This is weird.
Yeah, no, Sydney's like, at one point, Sydney's like, are you pregnant?
I think that happened in this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's where this happens. I forget, but it was kind of funny. And Jill's like, why did you even ask that? And she's like, you're sick. You don't look so good. Like, you want to see Adrian. And she's like, Sydney. And she's like, it's just a question.
Yeah, and
I don't know what you Maroy get up to.
Yeah. So Sydney's like, okay, well, we'll go see Adrian and I'll sign us out, because Sydney is allowed to leave campus and take her family with her type thing. I think Eddie's also allowed to leave. I think based on, I think because they're both 18, and I think they've kept the age of 18, or maybe it's just the fact that they're seniors. They're allowed to leave campus.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to take Jill with them because she's sibling.
Yes.
So Sydney goes to sign Jill out, and Mrs. Weathers, the dorm warden, is like, she's been suspended to her room for the school day, and Sydney's like, well, the school day ends in 10 minutes. And she's like, well, I guess you can wait 10 minutes then, can't you? So then they fuck off, go see Adrian, and Adrian's like, the fuck are you doing here? And Jill's just like, Sydney, I need to talk to Adrian in private. This is when the pregnancy thought happens.
Yeah.
And then Lee is there as well. So Sydney and Adrian have their little chat. Jill and Adrian have their chat. Sydney bumps into Lee. Lee's like, oh, is Jill here? And she's like, yeah, she's in there with Adrian. So he goes in. Adrian comes out. And Adrian's just like, I need you to get me out of here. And Sydney's like, Palm Springs. He's like, no, the house. I need money. I need to get out of here. I'm so bored.
He's like, help.
Because Clarence eats dinner at 5 p.m. and then goes to bed. And
Adrian's like, I want to die of death.
Yeah. And then Lee says to Adrian, oh, like, fuck, well, like, I'm going back to LA tomorrow, so why don't you come with? And Adrian's like, cool. So they decide to do that. And then Jill and Sydney go back to school, and Jill has a bit of a rant about Rose, but in a really weird way. And Sydney's really confused because she felt like that Jill was behaving like Rose had betrayed her as well, and Sydney's just confused. And then it's breakfast the next day, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm just flipping through the book to see where we're up to.
And check, Addie does bad book weeks with us. But I am in Colombia, so she is here off camera.
Yeah, she's here, but she's not officially. She's not welcome in Good Book Week. Is she listening to the stream, or is she just respond? Like, if she says anything, it's responding to you.
She's responding to me. She's not listening.
Excellent. Fuck Addie. I hate her. I only put up with her because it's bad book week, and the third person means I don't have to relive as much.
But check for the Blackwoods release stream tomorrow on the SDA channel, 11 p.m. Addie will be there.
Yes.
So.
And by the way, in case people don't get sarcasm, I was kidding. Just a little disclaimer there. Okay, so it's breakfast the next day. Sydney's like, well, Jill looks better. And then Jill's self-conscious about not looking normal, and then Sydney goes to class and speaks to Mr. Williger, and she's like, can I independent study with you, please? And she's like, do you mind doing note-taking? And Sydney's like, I am excellent at the note-taking. And Mr. Williger is like, excellent. You may independent study with me. And she's like, excellent. So then it's class, and Trey is also Trey is treating Sydney really weird. Every time Sydney answers a question, Trey gives her a filthy look.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in terms of Sydney's independent study, she more or less becomes Mr. Williger's assistant, and then at the end of the semester, she just has to write a paper about something related to what she helped Mr. Williger with.
Yep.
So, Yeah, so there's still more questions about Sydney's tattoo. It's covered up today, but people know she has it. They're like, are you sure that tattoo is not making you smart? And Sydney's like, can somebody please explain this to me? And they're like, later, because she makes two friends, Kristen and Julia. And by the way, I can't remember which one of them, but either Kristen or Julia, one of them is black, right? And do you know how? And it's just the way they're described. Like, this is how we know that she is. I'm guessing you didn't even pick up on it.
I did not.
I'm just looking to when she first met them. It was more or less just like I can't remember which one's which. I think Julia is the black one. I could be wrong, but it was just like Julia was a dark-skinned girl with an athletic build. It wasn't like, you know, a 10-minute long monologue about the color of her cappuccino skin. And like the cast do, like every time they mentioned Shawnee, they mentioned about how like her skin's cappuccino or latte, depending on the book. And it's like, do you know that there's a difference between cappuccino and latte colored? But anyway, actually, lattes have multiple colors throughout the drink. A latte is a layered drink. Anyway, but I do like though that Richelle kind of just was like, this is what she looks like. Like, she's very simplistic with her things. She doesn't like go on too much. But to be like, hey, look, I'm diverse. Look how beautiful I think not white is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it was just Trey is deeply tanned. His last name is Juarez, so he's Hispanic. But
yeah.
The description is he's deeply tanned.
Yeah, like that's obvious. Also, you're in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
So it completely makes sense, like, because of where you are.
Like even just giving us his last name would have told me that he's deeply tanned. But like, and then with the other one, like, cause one of them's blonde, the other one's black. So it was just like there was a blonde girl and a dark-skinned girl. One was, you know, one dressed girly, the other one was athletic. And I was like, excellent. I have a picture in my head now of the basic description of these secondary characters. Excellent. Yeah. I'm done. I don't need a 10-minute monologue on their description. So I liked that.
Well, I mean, the other thing, at least from what I've heard from a lot of people who advocate for diversity in books and stuff like that is, one, not treating white as the default, which I completely understand and I agree with. And the other thing, too, is, you know, also not treating people of color as, like we just talked about, or like you just talked about, like, I guess, like zoo attractions, you know?
Yeah.
Like when you describe them.
Yeah.
Because, like, when if you're trying to normalize them as characters, or like, you know, if you're going to be part of that, if you're going to be part of that normalization, you know, you should definitely be matching how you describe them in your book. So like, white shouldn't be the default. You shouldn't just assume that all your characters are white. And then also you should be giving them the same level of description that you give your white characters. So yeah, you're not treating them like, one, there's some sort of freak show attraction, and then, you know, two, you're also giving your white characters the same level of description. So yeah, that's
like, and in this as well, like when there's a Moroi character, it's safe to assume that they're pale as all fuck. And like even Abe has olive undertones to his skin, but he's really pale. And when describing his complexion, it was like if someone from Turkey got really, really sick and was going through chemo or something, that's kind of like his complexion.
Right. Like Rose is darker than him because she's a Dampier.
Yeah, and Rose is described as an anomaly, especially in North American Moroi society, because most Moroi all Moroi are pale as fuck, but also because they have Russian origins, most of them are white pale, not olive pale like Abe is.
Mm-hmm.
And Dampiers then would extrapolate out to most of them would be white but tanned.
Yeah.
And then in this, I know that like while she didn't describe whichever one of Chris and Julia is white, it was a dark-skinned girl and a blonde girl. So you can extrapolate from the blonde that she's white. Because
right, but they get the same level of description as well.
And that's what we get it. It's more just if she doesn't specify that someone's white, it's because we've gotten a feature that is generally white. Like if someone's got green eyes, they're almost definitely white. It's not often that you see someone with a who's not white with green eyes, and generally that's because they're biracial.
Right. And like as weird as hilarious as it is, because of how woke the casts think that they are, the woker way to do it is how Richelle Mead does it.
Yeah. And that's the thing as well. Like we get as well that Sydney, like we've already gotten Sydney's description. She's got dirty blonde hair, all that stuff. So it's like, okay, she's white. Eddie is described as tan. So generally that's just a white person who's gotten a tan and stuff like that. So like we know what everyone is just because of one phrase to each of them, which is good. But then we have, so after Sydney had a chat with Mrs. Williker about independent study, and people are still asking her questions about her tattoo and everything. Jill is struggling hardcore in the sun, and so that the class has been broken up into 4 teams with 2 games of volleyball going at the same time. Micah and Sydney are on the same team, and Micah's like, "The fuck's up with your sister?" And she's like, "Oh, she's really sensitive to the sun. She has like a sun allergy." And he's like, "Okay, no worries." So he goes and swaps places with someone else.
Yeah.
Team and helps Jill out in the game. So he, he's a good guy. He's a sweetie. Like I can't fault Michael. And I think also that day as well, she starts hearing this Slade guy talking about how he's gonna get one soon, and then he'll be quarterback. And she's like, "What the fuck is he talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, a tattoo." And she's like, "How the fuck would that make someone a quarterback? I'm confused."
Yeah, she's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, so she asks Kristen and Julia, and they're like, "Well, come meet us in the library later. We'll explain everything."
Yeah,
she's like, "Okay." But after PE, Sydney talks to their teacher about maybe getting exercising out in the sun, and the teacher's just like, without a doctor's note, there's nothing I can do, I guess, type thing. So Sydney's like, "Okay, I guess I'll have to talk to Keith then," which is not really what to do. And then
I'm sorry, it's just like this over here. You don't understand. Like I can't really express how, like, if you've ever been to Colombia, it is literally it's roads, but also all trains. Like it's all train tracks.
I don't understand why they're choo-chooing so much. They have to choo-choo that much. He's near an intersection.
It doesn't matter where you are in the city.
Okay.
You are always near you're always near an intersection. So like there's nowhere you can go here where you're not near a train. Like that's just life.
Yeah. Another Sydney's also getting concerned about the Micah Jill situation. She's worried that something's going to happen there, and it's wrong, and she can't let Jill date Micah.
All right, real quick. At first, when you said Micah, I thought you were saying Macca's, and you have infected me because the second you said Macca's, I was like, the McDonald's Jill situation, and I was like, Jill doesn't eat McDonald's. Sydney's concerned that Jill's gonna get fat. Like, what the fuck? And then I was like, oh no, never mind. Honestly though, there are so many trains here that like now half the time I don't notice it.
I'm laughing at all of the driver's plot twist theory.
Train conductor and he's letting you know that he's watching. Yeah, that's the case.
Well, if that is the case, stop it. Let us know by typing something in a chatty chat. Did you just drag him? I can't bring myself to do that because it's not as bad with vape. But with cigarettes, like there were a couple of times where I had to exhale out my nose, and it was awful. It was awful. It burned.
It just smells nice.
Yeah, vape wouldn't be as bad, but I just can't like there's a physical wall there, and I can't do it. But yeah, no, Sydney's very concerned. It's like something needs to happen about that, and she says to Eddie, like, because Eddie's been acting really weird around Michael, and Sydney doesn't know why. And
Hold
she
on
says
one
to
second.
Eddie,
Do you need me to do it?
No, I killed him.
Did you do it?
Yeah. No,
are you
he's
okay?
Dead. You're not okay.
I'm not okay
this
either.
This is the one time I didn't recruit him, and he's just dead. I tried to talk to him to be like, "Oh no, leave!" And you can't talk to him. You should fucking murder him.
I don't like it.
I literally waited until he fought me,
Wait,
so that my character auto killed.
Are we just casually discussing homicide?
So, okay, no, sorry, there's a video game, and it's Fire Emblem Three Houses, and it is very emotional.
Tweeting about
and I'm incredibly distraught right now because, like, one of our favorite characters, like, if you don't do, like, a thing, you have to kill them, and it's, like, incredibly distressing. And why didn't you recruit him?
Because I didn't need him. He would have been useless. He would have just sat in my roster.
So? You wouldn't have had to kill him.
I know.
Anyway, sorry. I was like, do you need me to do it? Do you need me to take one for the team and murder Ferdinand?
Nope, I murdered Ferdinand in his long-haired glory.
I'm sorry.
No, just like at the beginning of that conversation, I thought it was a spider, and then I heard part of hers. So I was like, no, it must be a game. But I'm like, let's just clarify this because it sounds like she just murdered someone.
I'm like, do you need me to kill him? And it's like, are we just casually discussing like a dead body in Addie's apartment in the country of Colombia? Like, what is going on?
Fuck.
Drugs that'll ruin your life, kids.
Yeah. So, So Sydney's saying to Eddie, like, you need to get Michael back off of trying to court Jill. It's not going to be weird. You're her big brother. Like, just do it. And he's just like, I think it's fine. And, like, not for them dating, but I think the situation will be fine. I just don't want to. And Sydney's like, but why? And he's like, just leave it alone, okay? And then that's it.
Yeah.
So
he's like, I think it'll work itself out. Just don't touch it.
Yeah. So, oh, because also Sydney, this is after school, so Sydney's already done her independent study with Mr. Williger. She's like, here, take this book. I want notes on the book. And Sydney's like, okay, I'll get notes. But after her conversation with Eddie, she's like, I need to speak to Adrian, because Adrian's probably the only other person Jill will listen to. So she goes to Clarence's house, and he's like, oh, you got me he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, am I interrupting? I love this. I love the banter between them. She's like, oh, am I interrupting your social calendar in this big room that is empty besides you? Type thing. And I just love the banter between them. Cause, like, they have a lot cute. She's very sarcastic to him, and he's just playful, and it's cute. I like them. And she starts to talk to Adrian about Micah, and Adrian's just like, well, let's have Eddie rough him up. And she's like, but he won't. And he's like, that's weird. I guess I'll talk to her. And then Wild B appears, and he's like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, there's this boy at school. And he's like, well, I like Jill. I want to date Jill. And Adrian's like, how absolutely dare you? She's 15, you're 19. I'll beat the crap out of you right here, right now.
And I was like, yeah, I fucking agree. Like, that was the point. I was like, yeah, Adrian, let's go. Like, let's beat the shit out of Lee. Like, I was on his side. I was like, yeah, that's fucking weird. Like, no. Like, at 14, as in Jill's shoes, at 15, I would have been like, yeah, let's date a 19-year-old. But, like, as an adult, I'm like,
yeah,
beat the shit out of the 19-year-old that's okay with that.
Yeah, and Sydney's just like, well, they're both still teenagers. It's fine.
Well, she's also like, and he's a Maroi, so there's no.
Yeah, she'd prefer a 15-year-old to date a 19-year-old if they're of the same species than interspecies dating of the same age.
Yeah.
So he's like, and Lee's just like, stop talking, Addie, you're being rude.
I'm sorry. She's in like distress. She's like having a mental breakdown. She has to murder people she loves, okay?
Make Cassie go give her a cuddle.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And Lee's like, oh, well, I was gonna ask Jill out. Maybe I could ask her out. I was planning on doing it anyway. And Sydney's like, well, if Jill goes anywhere, Eddie's gonna want to go with her because he's super protective because they don't know why they're actually there. Like Lee and Clarence, don't know, who Jill is. And
which thank God, given like the actual situation.
Yes. So Sydney's just like, Eddie's super protective. He'll want to go too, and I guess I would have to drive because, type thing. So I guess I would go to. And Adrian's like, me too. I want to come too. I don't want to be left all alone. And they're like, okay, well, I guess it'll be a group outing. It's not really much of a date, but we'll do it, I guess. And Lee's just like, it's fine. I'm fine with there being chaperones. So they're like, excellent. We'll do that then. And then Wild Keith appears.
Yes.
And Sydney's like, what are you doing here, Keith? And he's like, I'm here to talk to Clarence, and it's none of your business. I am the alchemist here. You are just merely, your assignment is Jill. My assignment is Palm Springs. Shut up, Sydney. And she's like, okay, but Jill's also having problems in the sun. And he's like, well, tell her to wear some sunscreen. Bye. So...
Well, yeah, no, because like she goes outside with Keith and they have like a really massive like confrontation, and Keith is like yelling at her, and telling her that like she's in love with with vampires, and Adrian overhears this, right? Yeah.
And he doesn't step in, but as soon as Keith leaves, he comes down and he's like, well, that was a bit rough, and she's like, yeah, I know, but it's fine. He's like, why are you letting him talk to you like that? And she's like, because he's kind of my superior. Just leave it be. Like, it's fine. And Adrian's like, okay, but you deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And this here is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
It is.
And then, yeah, so Adrian also overheard Keith refusing to do anything to step in and help Jill get out of PE in the sun type thing. And then she gets a phone call from Miss Terwilliger, and she wants Sydney to do a coffee run. So Sydney goes and gets coffee and goes to take it to Miss Terwilliger, who is in one of the offices in the library. And when she runs into Trey at the coffee shop, or does that happen later?
No, that happens here.
Oh, no, that's already happened. Sorry, already happened.
I think we already talked about it.
Yeah, because she got directions to Spencer's from Miss Weather, so that must have been during the last period that we just glossed over. So she goes, gets a coffee, and then goes to take it to Miss Terwilliger in the library, and she sees Kristen and Julia, and they're like, come study with us, So she's like, okay, well, give me a minute, I'll see if I can break free. So she takes Miss Terwilliger a coffee and says, oh, do you mind if I work out there. Yep. So Sydney goes out and she learns about the tattoos.
Yep.
So there's this tattoo parlor in Palm Springs called Nevermore, and they do 2 different kinds of tattoos called steels and celestials. Sorry, I'll tell you why. I'll be laughing at that later. And the steels are silver colored. The celestials are copper colored.
Yeah.
And the steel ones are kind of make like they're effectively steroid tattoos.
Yes.
I guess.
And the copper ones get you high.
Yeah, they're like Eki tattoos.
Yeah, they're Eki tattoos.
Yeah, and they're not permanent. Like I think the celestials effects last about a week, and then you can get them like topped up, I guess. So it's not as expensive as the tattoo, but it's still expensive though, you know. And the steels, I don't know how long they last, but I imagine a bit longer than the celestials, probably about 2 weeks, I reckon.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say in the book it lasts 2 weeks. It lasts longer.
Yeah. And that's right, because while she's over with them, Slade is talking about how he finally got his tattoo and he's showing it. It's silver colored, and then there's this chick Laurel, big bouncy red hair, lots of curls, really long, all that stuff. I think it's curly. That's always the image I got. I don't know. Regardless, she's got long red hair, very important to note. And she's got a faded celestial tattoo, and then so Sydney's like, tell me. And yeah. And Laurel sees Sydney and she's like, oh, you vampire girl sister, and Sydney's like, vampire, and she's having like a freak out, like, how do they know?
Yeah, like, oh my god. And it's just they're being a douche.
Yeah, it's just she's pale.
Oh, Laurel. Yeah, no, I do imagine her with the curly red hair too. Yeah.
So yeah, they explain the tattoo thing, and Sydney's just like, well, this isn't good. It's like, you know, type thing.
Well, yeah, because like it's clearly alchemist tech or whatever, and that's what Sydney thinks, and so yeah.
Yeah, so she's freaking out about it, and she's like, what the fuck is in these tattoos? And she's like, I need to work this out. And then they're talking about how Trey hates them, and that Kristen and Julia's theory is he's just jealous that he can't afford one. Because up until this point as well, Trey's been good enough at sports to not like to be able to compete against like with the guys that do get them. But now that Slade has gotten one and he wants the same position as Trey on the team, Trey's probably going to lose his quarterback position. So there's that. And then, that's pretty much it for that scene. Then Sydney goes back to her room. They go to bed, and she wakes up, and Jill is in bed sobbing. And she's confused. Oh, because that's right as well, because she ran into Jill before she went to class. Oh, sorry, before she went and got Mr. Willard a coffee, and Jill had a go at her for setting her up on a date with Lee.
Oh, yeah. And also, because she was yelling at her for like literally everything that was said. And Sydney was like, how do you know literally everything that was said? And she was like, wow.
The second I left. And
yeah, like Adrian called you the second I left, and he told you word for word, bullet point by bullet point, what the fuck I said and what the fuck.
Yeah. So yeah, then when Sydney wakes up and Jill's sobbing in bed, she thinks Jill's crying because of that, and she's like, I'm really sorry, Jill, I'm really, really sorry. And Jill's like, no, it's not that. And she wouldn't tell her what was wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure this bit was she had a nightmare about the attack.
We didn't see the attack, right?
No, the attack happened before.
I was going to say, I'm like, I'm not going crazy, am I?
Yeah, no, we had a nightmare. She was having a nightmare about the attack. So, and then Jill mentions here, like, I'm really sorry about what Keith said to you. And Sydney's like, did Adrian fucking tell you everything? My God.
Yeah.
And so then the next day, Sydney called, I guess, Alchemist headquarters and was like, we need a note from our quote unquote parents for Jill. They go through class. Laurel hates Jill because she's got a thing for Micah. Micah has a thing for Jill, so she's picking on Jill. Micah is helping Jill out in PE again. And then he's been doing research on sun allergies, and he's like, I don't think Jill has a sun allergy. I'm going to keep researching what's actually wrong with her. And Sydney's like, you really don't have to. It's fine. And he's like, no, I want her to feel good. So I'm going to find out what's actually wrong with her. And she's like, fuck's sake. Luckily, nothing comes from that, though. So it's good. But Sydney's just like, God damn it. Like, yeah, we really need to nip this in the bud.
Yeah.
Then it's independent study again, and Mr. Williger's like, really good notes. I'm very happy. Like, it's very organized. And Sydney's like, well, thank you. And she's like, but they're not detailed enough. I want this step, all of this, because she's doing notes on a spell book. And she's like, I want the spells, all of the instructions in there line by line. And she's like, well, that's not really note taking, it's copying, but I guess I'll do it. And then, and this is where, and she goes back to the room and Jill's passed out in bed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where some of like Sydney's nurturing comes in. She wakes Jill up and she's like, good news, it's feeding day. And then she's like, why am I excited about that? God damn it. So Eddie, Jill, and Sydney all go to Clarence's, and Jill's like, can we stop the pizza? Adrian's really bored of Clarence's food. And Sydney's like, when the fuck did you talk to Adrian? God damn it. Fine.
Yeah, she's like, what do you guys do? Conference call every 5 minutes? What the fuck?
Yeah. And
see, because like I know what their relationship is, like I was like weirded out because I was like, why are they talking so much? And I was
I think the first time I read this, I had a suspicion of what was actually happening.
Yeah, like I knew that there was something way more going on because I was like, her talking to him does not account for any of this. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't think I knew yet. I think I had the suspicion in the scene that we find out, but just before we found out, I think. But it was years ago, so I don't really remember.
Like, it wasn't until she was about to tell her that I was like, oh, is that what this is? But like, when all this was happening, I was like, I wonder what's happening, and that was it. I was like, I wonder what the thing is, and that was all.
Yeah.
That was as far as I went. Like, because you don't see the attack, so like it didn't pop into my head. Like, because you don't know where Adrian was or where anybody was or blah blah blah.
Yeah. And it's funny though, because Sydney was just like, no, fuck Adrian. You can just eat what's there, and then she's like, but we're going there for dinner. So that means I have to eat what's there. I don't want to eat food from a vampire house. Fine, we'll get pizza. Fine. So they get there. There's a feeding happening. It's that, like, Jill's polite. Her and Dorothea. How the fuck do you say that name?
Dorothea?
Dorothea, okay. That's weird though. Sorry, this bit says Dorothy. I think apparently it's Dorothy. In writing it's Dorothy. I swear in the book it was Dorothea.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So I don't know if this is just a typo or if I don't know.
Okay.
We'll just keep calling it Dorothea.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jill and Dorothea leave the room, so Sydney doesn't have to witness it, which is nice. They all have a catch up and chatty chat. Clarence just keeps watching Jill. That's right, because in the first scene where we meet Clarence, he's like, you got to be careful of the vampire hunters, type thing. And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, they killed my niece Tamara. And Lee's like, it was Strigoi, Dad. And he's like, no, it was vampire hunters. Why would they have slit her throat if it was a Strigoi type thing? And so his niece was about the same age as Jill, I think, when she was killed. So he's just overly protective of Jill for that reason as well. Like he's, well, not overly protective, he's overly concerned.
Yeah, that's a better word for it, I think.
Yeah. And then, who is she? Oh, Keith rocks up as well, and Sydney mentions the tattoo, like the celestial and steel tattoos to him.
Yes,
and
Keith is like, can you shut the fuck up and stay in your goddamn lane?
Yeah. He's like, they're not bound with gold, they're not our tattoos. And she's like, yeah, but we used to have silver and copper tattoos before we worked out the gold ones. Because gold keeps the effects in longer, so they use the gold ones. And he's just like, it's not alchemist tattoos, it's not our business, just leave it alone. And then he's like, you're embarrassing me, shut the fuck up, rah, rah, rah. And then Adrian cuts in and he's like, how's PE, Jill? And she's like, it sucks, it's miserable. And Kate's like, oh, well, no worries, I'll get you a note. Sydney never told me how bad it truly was. And so he's trying to make Sydney look bad. And Adrian's
I wanted to stab him.
I know. And Adrian's about to jump to Sydney's offense, and she's just like, no, just leave it type thing. And so she changes the topic and oh wait, no, sorry, Jill waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a nightmare from the attack, it was the other thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because Adrian was in LA. So yeah, they're having a chat about LA, and then they're like, it's Friday night, like we should go do the group date mini golf thing. So they decide to do that. Keith's there for this conversation. He's like, oh, and Sydney's like, Keith, is it like, meaning like, is it cool if I take them to mini golf? And he's just like, no, I don't want to go, but you can go, that's fine. And she's like, okay, you weren't invited, but cool. And then I like this as well, Adrian fucks with Keith again, because Clarence gets out a bottle of red wine. He's like, who wants a drink? And Adrian's like, I'll have one. And Keith's like, I guess I will too. And then Adrian takes a sip of his after Keith has his in his mouth. And he's like, oh neck, my favorite.
Yeah, and then Keith is like, it's great.
And I just love Clarence. He's so confused by it. He's just like, oh really? I thought it was a Cabernet.
He's like, oh, did I accidentally drop blood in there? And then Adrian's like, oh, guess not. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Because Adrian has an Australian accent.
Yep.
All of the Volchkovs do until we start going to Adrian's perspective and it's male narrator for him. Then he gets a normal American accent again, but his mother still has an Australian one.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I think in the fourth book, maybe, we start to switch perspectives between Sydney and Adrian. Okay. And they have a male narrator to Adrian's chapters. And so Emily Schaefer changes her Adrian voice to be closer to the male narrator's voice. So he loses, and it's a bit jarring at first. It takes a minute to get used to him not speaking the way we've been listening to him speak since book, I think, 4 of the last series, but you get there.
Wait, didn't he show up in book 2?
Different narrators though. Emily Schaefer.
Oh yeah. But like, wait, so he loses his British accent?
Yeah, he because I think she gave him that accent because he's like related to the Queen type thing. So she was trying to like class his accent up a bit.
So he doesn't canonically have one?
No.
I feel weird.
Yeah, the first 2 books is when he's got a normal American accent, like just a standard American accent. It's only once Emily Schaefer starts narrating that she gives him that voice. I guess like I think her goal was to try and like mimic like the New England, like old money accents, but she somehow ended up getting to she made it Australian by accident.
It's weird. Now, like, yeah, now it's.
Yeah, that's narrator's choice. Yeah, so they're gonna do mini golfing, and They decide that Eddie's gonna give Jill her self-defense lessons tomorrow, and he tells Sydney she has to learn to throw a punch too.
Yes, and Sydney's like, but for what? Why?
Like, because everyone should know how to throw a punch. Okay, it's important because Eddie, especially after the attack as well, Eddie knows how important it is to not leave defenseless people defenseless. So he wants Sydney to learn how to throw a punch because he cares about her safety. So they get to the mini golf course because also Jill's been complaining so far throughout the book, not to the point of annoyance, but just she's mentioned it a couple times about how dry the air is. There's no moisture in the air, and she's a water user, so she's missed the. So they get to the mini golf thing. There's a waterfall, and she's like, "Wow, it's beautiful." And Sydney's like, "It's gross. Let's move along, please." So they're all playing mini golf. Adrian can't play for the life of him, but he thinks he's good at it. Eddie's pretty good. Sydney's confused until she works out. Like, Sydney looks at it from a very analytical perspective. She's like, "Oh, it's just basic physics, you know. If I angle it in the correct way and do it this and that at this velocity."
I thought it was adorable. I was like, it was cute.
I was actually thinking this morning, because when I dropped the kids off at daycare, I was talking to one of their teachers about, just the differences between the two of them. And because, like, after Sydney works out how to putt, she's like, "Eddie, how do you work it out?" He's like, I just line it up and putt, type thing. And it's actually exactly the same as my two. Like,
what? That is so true. It totally is.
She likes to try and analyze things and get it perfect before she tries. Whereas he just goes, "Oh, I just saw someone do that. I'm going to try and do it."
Yeah. Yeah. Like, she's like, "Oh, well, I just did like I just did like the quadratic formula in my head." And then all of a sudden, like, boom. And then she's like, "Eddie, what do you do?" And he's like, "I putt."
Yeah. And my headphones.
And I'm like, that's your two kids, like, in a nutshell. Mm-hmm.
Connect back, damn it. So.
What? So
there we go.
Okay. So while we're mini golfing, we get to a point where nobody's around and there's water, so we start playing with water.
And Sydney takes the fuck out.
Sydney goes like, she's like a complete panic attack over playing with water because she hates, and it's not that she hates magic, she's terrified of it.
Yep, and she gets like a couple of like water droplets on her and stuff like that. So like after she goes home, she like scrubs in the shower to try and get the magic off of her.
It struck me as like interesting because she uses magic to like dissolve Strigoi bodies and stuff like that, but she doesn't see it as magic.
Well, it's science. Like the formulas that the alchemists use, it's more scientific reactions.
Yeah, but it is magic, isn't it?
No, the only magic they have involved is in their tattoo.
Okay.
The rest of their stuff is science.
Okay.
Oh, before that happens though, they come across the Dracula's castle pot thing, and it's like stereotypical, like, you know, Dracula with the glowing
I
face.
liked that part.
And Sydney just bursts out laughing. She's like hysterically laughing, and Adrian and Eddie, because Jill and Leah, you know,
Yeah.
on them having a little date thing, like a couple holds behind them. And Adrian and Eddie are just like, did you know she could smile, like laugh? And the other guy, I didn't even know she could smile. So like, and then she wants Adrian to get a photo of her with Dracula.
It was cute.
Yeah, it was just a cute little moment between them. But then the water thing happens, and Sydney's saying to Jill, like, stop, and she's like, no one's around, it's fine. And Eddie's kind of like just happy that Jill is happy. She's saying to, like, Jill's saying to Lee, oh, you're an air user, right? Like, why don't you make a fog thing? And he's like, no. And this is actually something we have to discuss as well later, about his element. He's like, nah, you know, what if someone comes by type thing? And Adrian is watching Sydney, and he can actually see that she's full-blown freaking out, so he's full-blown snaps at Jill, like, stop it. And he actually, because Adrian also calls Jill jailbait, but this, like, he actually calls her Jill here to get her attention and make sure she knows he's serious, and makes her stop. And he doesn't draw attention to the fact that Sydney freaked out either, which is nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I think Jill knows why he made her stop, but Adrian doesn't make a scene. He's just like, Jill, stop it. And she's like, oh, fine, okay.
Yeah, but it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, I really do like as well that there was the detail of Sydney got a little bit of water on her, and she like scrubbed herself raw to get the taint of the magic off.
Well, because it also shows that, like, she's not just being finicky about it, like, she's actually scared.
Yeah, which makes sense with her childhood and all that stuff. And again, the more we learn about the alchemist as well, the even more it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's the next day. And Eddie calls Sydney, and she's like, what are you doing? It's early. And he's like, it's self-defense time, guys. Let's go. And he's like, okay, I'll send Jill down. He's like, no, you're coming too, remember? And she's like, God damn it.
And she's like, I didn't agree to this.
Oh, that's right as well, because
she's like, I was voluntold. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, because the night before as well, before Adrian had a glass of wine, Jill's like, it's the weekend, you can drink. And then he just didn't stop drinking. And today, Jill is very tired.
Jill doesn't feel very good.
No, so they go down, and
okay, real quick though, like, I don't remember that being a side effect with Rose and Lisa. Or Lissa.
Lissa didn't really drink.
Oh yeah. I guess not the way that Adrian drinks.
Nope. But then, yeah, when they're on their way down though, Mr. Williger calls Sydney on a Saturday and says, bring me coffee, bitch. So Sydney's like, fine, I'll go get you coffee. And then she gets to Spencer's. That's right, because Trey wasn't working the other 2 times she went to Spencer's. She gets to Spencer's, and Trey's working there. And she's like, oh, you work here? He's like, yeah, not everyone here is rich, damn it. Some people need to actually work. Because it's a boarding school, so obviously most of the students are wealthy, and then there's obviously some scholarship students as well. And then they're just talking about how Slade wreaked havoc at the football tryouts the day before. Trey's all bruised up and shit. And Sydney's like, look, Julia and Kristen told me about the tattoos. I know why you were suspicious of mine, but I promise it's not what you think. It's not, doesn't give me magical brain smartness. I just thought it was pretty. Which I'm really surprised that people even bought this, because Sydney brings up throughout this book as well that she was. I think they should have also collaborated their backstories, because I also don't think Eddie and Jill are going around telling everyone that they were homeschooled. But Sydney's like, oh, I was homeschooled, my dad was really strict type thing. And it's like, what kind of strict father goes, okay, daughter, you can get a face tattoo in Utah?
South Dakota.
Oh, yeah, well, South Dakota. Yeah, that's right. She's from
Utah. That's right, because she goes with, like, her real story rather than, like, their dad was really strict.
Yeah, but, like, they didn't really discuss. I'm actually surprised that their conflicting backstories, like, it never becomes an issue.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Jill and Eddie just kind of avoid talking about it, and they must just know what Sydney said. Like, people must have been like, oh, Sydney said your dad was really strict, and they were probably just like, yeah, he sure was really strict. Well,
yeah.
If you want to know anything about our past, just ask our sister. She knows.
Our sister, my twin. Yes, absolutely. And why does our brother have an Australian accent? Who knows?
He thinks it makes it. He's an artist. They're all a bit weird. Honestly, that's probably ends up being an excuse that they use a lot for Adrian, because at this stage as well, I don't think Adrian's come to the school yet, but when he does, they're like, oh yeah, that's our other brother, Adrian. Yeah, there's a few of us. Our parents were breeding machines, apparently.
And none of us look alike at all.
Well, people buy Sydney and Eddie. They're both blonde. He's got hazel eyes. I think she's got green. No, she's got brown eyes.
Yeah.
He's got hazel eyes. Jill and Adrian. Once they meet Adrian as well, they're like, oh, okay, I guess you two take after one parent, you two take after the other. All makes sense now, I guess. But yeah, when people meet Adrian, they're like, oh, we were beginning to think Jill was adopted. Now it makes sense. Because she just looks nothing like the other two.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so Sydney and Trey talk. He's like, I know about the tattoos. The girls told me about them. It's all good, I swear. And he's just like, don't worry, I believe you. There's something naively innocent about you. And she's like, I'm not naive.
She's like, how very dare you? And it's like, it's okay, sweetie.
And she proves how naive she is as well when she doesn't understand that someone's asking her out later as well in the book.
It was really funny, honestly. Because, okay, real quick, because I don't remember where it happens, but like, he's like, do you like silent movies? And then she gives him facts about silent movies. And then he's like, do you want to go see one? And she's like, it's not my thing. And then he's like, do you like sci-fi? And she's like, no. And then he's like, are there any movies you want to go see? And she's like, I don't like this cinema.
Yeah. She's no. I think she's like, oh, I guess I'll have to check the local listings and see if there is anything, but I don't think so.
Yeah, like it's not bitchy or anything. She's just like, I don't really know. Like I haven't checked recently, and like I haven't really been thinking about it. Like I just don't know. And like she's just talking.
Away and she's like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, she's like, why did some random guy just come up to me to talk about cinema? And then like, is it Julia?
Either Julia and Kristen.
Yeah, and she's like, what the fuck was that? That was so funny. And she's like, what do you mean? He was just talking to me about cinema. And they're like, he was asking you out. And she's like,
I don't think so.
She's like, no, he wanted to know about silent films. And then he wanted to know about sci-fi, which is a very weird mix of cinema taste, if you ask me. Like, I thought that was odd. So I was, and then it was like, oh my God, Sydney, you poor thing. And
and then Sydney's just like, oh, because that was the thing as well, like before when they were talking about like the group date thing. She's like, because Adrian's like, Jill's too young today. And she's like, I don't know if Jill's too young today, but that's just coming from me. And I've never dated, I guess. And Sydney's just so clueless when it comes to boys showing their affections. And it's sweet. I love it.
I know, it's adorable.
Because it's done in a way as well that, like, she's not just like, because in a lot of, like, YA books, like, if a girl doesn't notice a guy's flirting with her, it's just like, I'm so into him, but I'm just so not good enough for him. So he couldn't be flirting with me. Like, it just never even crossed in his mind.
Yeah, like, she's literally just like, that's an odd mix of, like, movie choices, I feel like. And I feel like you could have, like, he has weird taste in cinema. And
and it's also just like, it's just before class. Why are you inquiring as to whether, like, my interest in silent movies? This is a bizarre time for this conversation, let alone topic. She's cute.
Also, like I said, Sydney's kind of my spirit animal. Because, like, depending on the situation, you guys have seen me try to understand jokes on, like, Lords of the Night. That is exactly what happens to me. Like, it takes me 10 years to just be like, oh my God, I get it. And it's like, SDA, that was 10 minutes ago. I'm like, yeah, but I'm with everybody now.
I swear.
So I understand where she's coming from. It was funny.
Yeah. So then she's like, Sydney says to Charlie, like, how long have the tattoos been around? He's like, oh, since the end of last school year, I guess. She's like, okay, type thing. Because it's also the beginning of the school year. Because this event, because the last, like, Vampire Academy ended probably about midsummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the time gap's been about 1.5 months. So Alyssa's been queen for about about 1.5 months at this point.
Yeah.
So then Sydney fucks off back to school, gives Miss Teressa her coffee, and she decides to go to her room to do the work that Miss Teressa has given her. Runs into Eddie coaching Jill in self-defense, and Mike is watching. And Mike is just like, I didn't know your brother was into Kung Fu. And Eddie's like, it's not Kung Fu.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Sorry.
Yeah. And then it's starting to get a bit too sunny to keep training. So Eddie's like, I think we'll call it a day. And Jill's like, but no. And he's like, maybe later.
Yeah.
And so she's keen as a bee. And she's like, can we do it tonight and tomorrow morning and then tomorrow night and then the next night and the next night? And it's just like, yeah, cool. We'll do
and the
that.
day after that. And the day after that. And the day after that. Sorry. I knew you'd get the reference.
And then
that's like, okay, real quick though, that's like one of the funniest scenes in the Vampire Diaries. And it makes me laugh every time. And the day after that.
And then Eddie's just like, your turn, Sydney. And she's like, but why? When would I ever need to throw a punch? And Eddie's like, you never know.
He's like, you never know. And that's the point, Sydney.
So,
and, like, what was funny, though, like, as the reader, you're like, Sydney, I can think of a couple of times that you could have, that throwing a punch could have come in handy for you.
Yeah. I don't know if we've had the manual labor part of the conversation. Oh, that's right. When Adrian first said to Sydney, you need to get me out of here, Sydney's like, you could always get a job. And he's like, these hands don't do manual labor.
Yeah, he's like, no. And I'm like, I feel that on a level.
And that sentiment ends up becoming a very common catchphrase for Adrian throughout the next few books.
Yeah, no, these hands do not do manual labor. No, they don't. I just got a manicure. If you think I'm lifting a finger, you are out of your goddamn minds.
So then, so he teaches, I think, yeah, so she lets Eddie teach her how to throw a punch. And she's like, and then once they were done, Mike is like, my turn. And Eddie's like, okay. So and Eddie's actually, going a bit harder with Micah.
Yeah, and then Jill's like, you actually kicked him. What the fuck? And then he's like, I kicked you. And then she's like, no, you fucking didn't, you pussy. And then he's like, hey. And then she's like,
that was different. And she's like, why? Because I'm a girl. You never held back with Rose. Mike is like, who's Rose?
And they're like, some bitch.
Yep. And then so Jill like is muttering to Sydney like, when's he ever gonna not be afraid of breaking me? And Sydney's just like, look, you're a princess and he's a guardian. It's kind of instinctual to not break you.
I had like a thought, and I'm not gonna say it. I'll text it to you though.
Okay. And then they decide to do lunch with Michael, like the other two. And then Sydney goes to do a study thing, but then she decides to try and look into the attack. Faye.
It just popped into my head. Because I know what happens. I mean, not that, but like. Stupid.
Moving on. So Sydney decides to try. She knows that there's something she's not being told about the attack, so she tries to look into it a bit more. So effectively, her research more or less confirms what she already knows and just more or less lays it out explicitly for us. The majority of the Moray world are Team Lissa, but there's like people that are just like, I don't like how progressive this queen is. Let's kill her or make her unqueen, so kill Jill type thing. And part of the reason why the Alchemist is so intent on protecting Jill is because the people that are not fans of Lissa being queen, they're already making enough of a scene, and they're a very small minority of the Moray nation in general. So if Jill were to die and Lissa were to lose her throne because of it, because it's going to take a few months at minimum to change the family law that requires Jill to exist, that would just, it would cause chaos throughout the world. There's a good chance that vampires would become common knowledge.
Yeah.
If Jill dies, effectively.
Yeah.
So, and pretty much all that Sydney can find regarding the attack was that it was vicious and severe. And she's just like, this is really weird. Like, I don't get it. Like, she's how could you have made such a full recovery if it was that vicious and that severe? And that's pretty much all we're left with here. And then so Sydney goes to bed, and Jill wakes her up hella early, like just at sunrise, and Jill's like, you have to go rescue Adrian.
And Sydney's like, bitch, what the ever-loving fuck?
No. Like, I love that. Like, it's Adrian, you have to rescue him is the end of one chapter, and the next chapter starts with from himself.
But she's just like, no, Sydney's straight up like, fuck Adrian. He can get himself home. Like, he needs to learn a fucking lesson. Like, he can go fuck himself. Fuck Adrian. Adrian can go die. What'd he do? Call you stupid ass? Like, what the hell? And then Jill's like,
Sydney's stranded in LA. Oh, Adrian's stranded in LA. And
yeah. So, so in order for Sydney to be talked into helping Adrian, Jill has to explain, like, the actual situation, because otherwise Sydney is completely happy to just let Adrian walk the fuck home.
Yep, and one thing I really liked about this, and this is, like, probably one of the mini golf thing was, like, probably sign one that Sydney was thawing towards them. Thawing is a hard word to say because it sounds like I'm saying Thor, like as in the god.
Yeah.
Yeah, thawing with a W. But this next bit is probably like sign 2. Like, Jill's like, if I tell you, you can't tell anyone, especially not the Alchemist. And Sydney promises. Like, in her head, she's like, I could always just say, I'm not telling anyone and then tell people. And she's like, no. If I'm gonna promise Jill, I'm gonna stick to it. And if I want to know, I have to do that. So I'm either not gonna know or I'm going to keep the promise. And she promises not to tell anyone.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that like she, even if she's uncomfortable with it, she keeps her word.
Yep.
And I like that. But Jill explains that in the attack, Eddie didn't, because we've been described as well that when the assassins tried to, like, went for Jill, everyone thought that they were going for Lissa, so all of the Guardians flocked to Lissa, and Eddie's the only one that tried to protect Jill. And the story was that he succeeded. But he actually failed, and Jill was stabbed to death. And then Adrian
yeeted her back to live.
Yes, so now they are bound. They have a bond.
Yes.
Which is how Jill knows
everything.
Yes. And Sydney's just like, whoa, spirits involved here, holy crap. You can see inside his head his thoughts, his feelings type thing, and Jill's like, yup, and Sydney's like, wow, that must have been terrifying for you, and then it clicks, and she's like, you were hungover the first day of school.
Yeah, she's like, you were hungover, but it wasn't your hangover. And then she's like, oh my God, you're like in his sex life. What the fuck is up with this kid? Like, this kid is fucking crazy.
Yep, and so Jill wants to, and then Sydney's like, fine, I'll go get Adrian, but it's for your sake, not for his. And Jill's like, I'm coming with, and she's like, no, you will absolutely not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because Jill's like, look, he ended up going to LA with Lee, and then he lost track of Lee, partied with some girls, and then he spent the night, and he passed out. And then he's like, how much of that did you actually experience? And Jill just kind of just wouldn't answer, and Sydney's furious. And so she agrees to go and get him, and she won't let Jill go with her because she wants to tell Adrian off. And she doesn't care if Jill witnesses it. She just doesn't want Jill there to stop her.
Yeah.
So she goes to get Adrian, rocks up. There's a couple girls there, and she's thinking, did you have a fucking orgy and make a 15-year-old girl experience it from inside your body? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, like, what the hell?
Because Jill isn't, they've only been bound for like, at this point, but for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
So Jill isn't, it took Rose years to learn how to block Lissa out, and only like, Jill is going to be able to fast track that because the ages Rose and Lissa had no idea what was going on. But because they know, and they have like Adrian has Lissa and Jill has Rose that they can talk to. Whether or not they do is a different story, but they can talk to them and learn. Adrian can learn how to block Jill from seeing what he's seeing. Jill can learn how to block Adrian and stop herself from going into him. So that will be fast tracked. It won't take them the years that it took Lissa and Rose, but it's still going to take a bit.
Yeah.
So Sydney goes, yells at Adrian, one for not telling her sooner that they were bound, but two for making Jill witness and experience shit she ought not to be experiencing because she's 15 years old and innocent, and 3 for being so freaking stupid that she has to babysit him. And he's offended by that, and she's furious, and she just
she's basically like, well, you wouldn't have to be offended by it if you weren't a fucking moron.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, and then he's just like, and then he starts having to go at her about how she lets Abe and Keith walk all over her, and she's like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and they have a big extra fight, and then they're about to leave, and then one of the Marie girls there gets a text or a phone call or something, and they start freaking out, and they're like, what's wrong? And they're like, our friend Melody, who was also Marie, she's dead, her throat was slit. Like, she was killed by Strigoi and her throat was slit. And Sydney's like, well, that's 2 Marie in a few years that have been killed in the same area in the same way, which is like a weird way. something's going on here.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So on that note, with the throat slitty thing, they go back to Palm Springs. Adrian slept the rest of the way, like most of the way home, so they didn't fight. So Sydney was just mulling over the coincidences, I guess, between the two things. Jill is incredibly grateful once they get back that Sydney went and got him. They have lunch. This is where people are like, oh, where they're like, this is our brother Adrian. And they're like, oh, it makes so much more sense now. So, Micah, I think it's Micah, Eddie, Jill, Sydney, and Adrian all have lunch together. They all have a bit of a chat. And Adrian makes fun of Sydney not eating much. And hurry up and come back, Faye. I hate doing this on my own. Just 1 sec. Yes, I am. And what happens next? And then Adrian's just talking about how Lee disappeared for a bit. Then Sydney decides to do some research regarding like the slit throat death thing happening, and she's involving Eddie in this because it's not like a super secret thing. He's just as confused as she is regarding the slit throat thing, but he's just, saying like, Ostrogoths do weird things sometimes. Maybe they're just being sadistic with what they did about Keith's eye. And she's like, let's not talk about Keith's eye. And then Sydney gets another book from Miss Twilliger about like that she has to take notes on next. And then she goes to go back up to her room, and Kristen, because Kristen and Julia, one of them has had a celestial tattoo before the other one was lamenting that she can't afford it yet and she's saving up. She walks past Kristen, and Kristen is like having a seizure on the floor, and she's surrounded by girls from the dorm. They're all freaking out, and she's like, we need to go get Mrs. Weathers, and they're all like, no, we can't. She had a tattoo. We think she's having a bad response to it. And the teachers can't know.
I don't remember what time it is.
Hey.
Hi.
We're up to Kristen's allergic reaction.
Oh,
yes.
To the tattoo.
Yeah, and then Sydney saves the day with her alchemy.
Yeah, so Sydney has seen, previously, there is the rare occasion where an alchemist will get their tattoo and they have an allergic response to it. So Sydney knows basically what to do. She goes up, she adjusts the formula to count for copper instead of gold, and fixes the problem, I guess. And turns the tattoo into a blob, because the metal and everything is designed to bind whatever is in it to your skin. But the toxins can't get out, so she has to get something to get the metal out of the tattoo so the rest can come out and she wouldn't die, type thing.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much that. And so everyone she kind of explains that away. It was like, oh, well, when I got my tattoo, they were like, oh, if you have a bad reaction, use this on it, type thing. And so then people are like asking her for like other stuff, like acne stuff and like acne cream, birth control, stuff like that. And she's like, I'll do the acne cream, but not the other stuff, okay? And now it's the movie, like the movie thing, because that kind of like boosted Sydney's popularity a lot.
Yeah.
Which is good for her. She's never been a social person. And then she gets asked out and she's confused by it all. But then on the other hand, Jill has been struggling socially even more. And the more she struggles socially, the more Micah dotes on her, which makes Laurel even more mad, which isolates Jill more, and it's like a vicious cycle. But then Micah finds out about Lee, and so Micah stops doting on Lil as much, but he still hangs around a lot. And then Sydney, Kristen and Julia have to kind of try and explain to Sydney that it's irrelevant that to Laurel, it's irrelevant that Jill isn't the reason why he's not interested in Laurel. Like, Laurel just hates Jill because she is the focus of Micah's attention.
Yeah.
And Sydney just doesn't understand it. She's like, that's not logical. Like, it's not logical, okay?
Fine.
And then there's more, like, Sydney goes back to Clarence's house. Keith's car is there, but he's off talking to Clarence. It's like, this is really weird. And there's just more of that. Sydney and Adrian have a conversation about Keith feeding into Clarence's vampire hunter stuff. And what's the next important thing to happen?
The next important thing I remember is them breaking into the tattoo studio. Oh,
That's
Adrian
right.
job
Adrian
interviewing.
No, it's the tattoo thing. So
That happens.
Adrian, no, it's now. They're
Okay.
there for a feeding, and that's when they have the chat and see Kate's car there. Jill's about to go and have a feed, and Adrian knows that it makes Sydney uncomfortable. So he's like, "Hey, can you take me to go get smokes? Like, kill two birds, one stone."
Oh, yeah.
And then she sees Nevermore. So she's like, "I wanted to suss out what the hell is happening there. Adrian, can you go cause a distraction in the front while I break into the back?" He's like, "No worries." And he comes up with the weirdest freaking tattoo idea while she's breaking in, and she finds vampire blood and a weird clear liquid. And so she takes all of it and gets away type thing. She can't work out what the clear liquid is, though. She's trying to work that out. And then the next day, she gets a call from her dad. Oh, wait, sorry. First Lady's freaking the fuck out because he can't get his tattoo touched up. And then she gets a call from... No, sorry. And Lil freezes Laurel's shower after PE.
Oh, yeah.
And Sydney goes apeshit at Jill. One, because it freaks her out, and two, the chance of discovery. And then she gets the call from her dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Sydney, I'm very disappointed in you. How absolutely dare you? You're neglecting Jill's needs. You made her suffer. You're taking them out to mini golf. You're doing all these social activities with them. You're being replaced in a week after Zoe is trained." And Sydney knows that Keith is the reason that this is happening, and she's like, "Why is he, like, what the fuck is actually, like, I don't get it, why?" And then Adrian works out why, like, Eddie's been so weird around Micah, which is the fact that he was a dead ringer for Mason. And then he fills Sydney in on Eddie's past and how Mason died and everything, and that makes Sydney understand Eddie a lot more and empathize with him more. And then it's the job search time.
Yes.
So Adrian's decided, fine, like, I'll go and get a job so I can leave Clarence. So Sydney does his resume for him, sets up interviews for him. He's dressed like he's ready to go clubbing, though, and he fucks up every interview. Like, the first one's at a lawyer's office, and in the interview I was like, what are you what's your greatest strength? And whatever it was, and then his greatest weakness. He's like, well, where do I start? And so Sydney's annoyed at that. And then I can't remember what the next one was.
Either way, he winds up at a bar for a bartender.
Yeah,
he had to wait.
The next one was at Spencer's, and he said the same thing to the manager. These hands don't do manual labor, when they're telling me what the job description was. And then he went to a bar, and so he was like, this will be good.
Yeah, and they made him wait, so he ordered a drink. And she'd be like, we ordered alcohol? He's like, but it was for a bartending position. And she was like, Adrian, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then she gets back to school, and Eddie's freaking the fuck out, and Jill is missing.
Yes. But we find out that it's a whole nothing burger, supposedly, because Jill gets back, and it's Lee. And she's like, I just wanted to be out from under the thumb of all of you. He took me to see water. Fuck all of you guys.
Yep. Oh, and he also took her to see a designer who is looking for models. Because Jill has a model body.
See, this freaked me out because I was like, that is classic LA. You're going to get murdered storyline. Whenever a guy's who is older than you is like, you would make a great model. He's going to kill you.
Yeah. Sydney's like, you can't model because, face, you can't, people can't know where you are. And she's like, well, they wanted me to wear a mask. She wanted to do a mask thing anyway. So, but because she went missing, she's suspended. She's only allowed to leave school, her room for classes, apparently. And then, so Sydney has to do, play the religious card to get it feedings twice a week. We have religious family dinners twice a week, so we have to be excused for those, please. And they're like, as long as you have a note, so she types up a note that he gets really mad about that. And she's like, I'll come to your apartment. He's like, no, I'll come to the school, and he yells at her about it for inconveniencing him. And then Kristen and Julia have a way of getting Jill to be able to still model if she wants to, because now Sydney's feeling really bad because she's like, the modeling thing could actually help. Could actually help Jill feel like she belongs.
Yeah.
And she wants Jill to be happy. And so Jill joins the sewing club so she can get permission to leave the school to do model the modeling show, because it's an assignment for that. Because her face is going to be covered. So Sydney's like, oh, I guess there's not much harm. And what else? Yeah, so they're all cross with Lee because he took Jill.
Yeah.
School grounds, and and he knows better type thing. And what happens next? Modeling job. At some point as well, Mrs. Terwilliger says, I want you to write a report on what it's like to actually do one of the spells you've been copying out. So Sydney's like, okay. So she picked one that looked relatively simple enough, and she felt uncomfortable doing it, but she's like, oh, well, it's the ingredients metal and, a bag of sand, or I can't remember what's in it, but it's all just and Sydney's like, this is bullshit. So, okay, fine, I'll do it. And while she's doing it, she was like, oh, Mr. Williger wouldn't know if I didn't actually follow every step, but she's like, no, I'm supposed to be writing a report on the authenticity of the experience. So she followed every step to the letter, and it was weird. She had to she was doing an incantation spell. So it was when she had to recite stuff over it. It took her about 2 hours, I think it was, and at the end of it, she was really, really tired. But she's like, okay, no worries. She did the report. She gave that to Mr. Williger and the bag, and she's like, no, now you have a little fire spell. Enjoy. And she's like, well, that's weird, but fine, I guess. And Does anything? Oh, and then Laurel is still making like hell for Jill, so Sydney decides to get back at her. She switches out Laurel shampoo with like something else that just turns her hair like really lanky.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times she washed it just made it worse because it was in her shampoo and Laurel didn't know. And it would take like weeks of scrubbing to get it to fix. So that's a thing that happened. And later on, Laurel ends up saying like, "Help me, Sydney," and Sydney's like, "Only if you promise to stop messing with Jill." And she's like, "Okay." So she gives it a fix. So that solves the Laurel problem. Trey and Sydney. No, that's not an important plot point. Sydney takes Jill to meet with the designer. She has to learn to walk in heels, all that stuff. So there's that. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So when they're there, Eddie's there as well, and then Lee rocks up, and she's like, "Okay, no worries. I'm just gonna go up," and she decided to do some investigating of her own at Nevermore, like to ask more questions because they're back in supply. So she walks in expecting to have start asking questions, and they start talking to her like, "Please tell me you have more stuff. You know, these kids are crazy. They want more and more and more. We don't have enough supply to keep up with the demand." And so Sydney's like, "Oh," and then he glances at her tattoo. So Sydney's like, "Yep, no, it's definitely an alchemist supplying them the stuff as well. It's not just they didn't steal our records." The alchemist involved. And so Sydney acts like she knows what she's like she's in on it, and then they're like, "Can you please stop having people calling us and asking about if we see anyone that looks like a vampire?" And Sydney's like, "No worries, I guess."
Yeah.
And she's like, "WTF?" And like, because that's a thing that carries on into the series. It's not resolved in this book. And then Sydney starts putting the pieces together. She works out that Keith called her father after she stole the stuff from Nevermore. And then everything clicks into place. Zoe's young and impressionable and idolizes Keith, so she wouldn't be asking questions, this and that. He already knows that Sydney's sus on him because of what he did to her sister. So that's why he didn't want Sydney there. And then after she stole the stuff and they saw a blonde girl running out the back of the store, he knew that it was her, so he wanted her gone. So she knows that Keith is the person who is supplying the tattoo artist with the tattoos.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, I need to sort something out." So she decides to go, and because she also assumes, because the fact that Keith is spending so much time at Clarence's, she knows that she assumes that the blood is coming from him. So she's like, okay. So she goes to Clarence's house, and Adrian's like, "Have you seen Clarence lately?" And she's like, "No, why?" And he's like, "You have to come and see him. Clarence is borderline comatose." I'm guessing because Keith had to take a lot more blood than usual to make up for the lost supply. And so then they start talking to Clarence about Keith and everything. Keith told Clarence he was taking the blood to help sick people get better, type thing. And then when they actually say no, it's the steroid tattoos. He's like, "Well, what's my saliva for then?" And it turns out that the saliva is what's in the celestial tattoos. This makes them high.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it all snaps into place, and they're like, "Okay, we need to get Keith out of his apartment because there will be stuff there." So Sydney calls Keith and is like, "We need to talk about Carly. Meet me here." And he's like, "Fine." You know. And so while she's off with Keith, Adrian is searching Keith's apartment, and then once he finds what he's looking for, he calls the alchemist she gives him a number to call.
Mm-hmm.
And so he texts Sydney when she gets Keith to meet her about 20 minutes away. So by the time she gets there, Adrian's already found the stuff, and the alchemists are going to be about half an hour to an hour. I think it was about an hour. So she has to keep Keith there for a minimum half an hour. So they start talking, and this is where we actually find out what happened between Keith and Carly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well this is where we find out what happened with Eli. I think Keith works it out. No, she just makes a call about his eye, like, you should have lost both eyes, and he's like, well, that's kind of harsh. And then he's about to walk out, and she starts apologizing because she's like, no, I need to keep him here longer, and then he clicks that she's trying to keep him there, so it's a race back to his apartment. But the alchemists are already there, and they found the stuff, and he's in trouble. And Nevermore's illicit tattoo ring is down, like it's gone. Trey is very happy. He gets to be quarterback again. And then, because we skip a week after that, after Keith gets busted, we time jump a week, and it's the fashion show.
Yeah.
And Jill. Jill is, I just mixed Leah, because that's the name of the designer, and Jill together. Jill looks amazing, and they're all so proud of her, and she looks great, and it's like, yay, Jill. We missed an entire freaking subplot. After the job thing didn't work out, Adrian's like, oh, if I go to college, I can get financial aid and this and that. So they decide to do that, but he has to get in as an auditor and then hopefully switch over. But Sydney finds out that he can't be retroactively given student status, so he has to complete the rest of the semester as an auditor. And Sydney didn't tell him with the hopes, because she saw that it was actually giving him focus and purpose, and she didn't want to take that away from him. And she knew that if he wasn't fully invested in it yet, he wouldn't keep going with it, so she didn't tell him. She's like, I'll tell him after he realizes how good it is for him, type thing. So it's just, and so Adrian's been really weird, and then they get into a fight after the fashion show at the party afterwards. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, because it's good for you. And this is what we were saying before as well. Sydney pushes Adrian to be better, to be more than what everyone thinks he is.
Yeah.
And he's mad, and then they're like, no, we're not having this fight on Jill's special night. And Lee's just like, oh, and Lee's there as well. And he's like, oh, have you seen Keith lately? And she's like, yeah, he's not coming back ever. Speaking of which, I guess I should go clean out his apartment. So she leaves and goes, and she's like, oh, well, I might as well actually go and clean out his apartment. So she goes there, and Lee rocks up. Oh, because there's also a girl that was at this school. That's right as well. There was also a girl that went to their school who was killed with her throat slit a few years back as well. And they had gotten, and Laurel gives Sydney the yearbooks that involve this girl, because Sydney's just wondering if there's any connection between her and Laurie. So she's got the yearbooks with her. She goes to Lisa, to Keith's apartment. She's looking at stuff, and then she starts flipping through the yearbooks, and Lee rocks up. And he's like, so is Keith really not coming back? And she's like, nah. And he's like, okay, are there any other alchemists around? And she's like, oh, in LA there is. And he's like, okay, well, that's good. And then he sees the yearbooks. And Sydney looks down as well, and she's like, oh, yeah, I'll just put these away. And then she sees Lee in a photo with the dead girl. And the photo was taken 5 years previously when Lee would have been 14. But he looks exactly the same as he does now. Bum, bum, bum. So she works out that there's obviously something off with Lee.
Something is afoot.
We learn that Lee used to be Strigoi, and he was turned back into a Moroi by an unknown spirit user, and he's trying to become Strigoi again. So he's tried killing humans, he's tried killing Moroi, he's tried killing Dampiers. We find out later that the girl that went to that school that died, that was in the photo with him, was a Dampier. And none of it works. No matter how many people he drains, he won't.
Meaning that if you go Strigoi and come back, you can't become a Strigoi again.
Yes. Now, I'm wondering as well, though, right? Because he can't use his air. Like, he can't use his magic anymore. That's why he refused to do the fog thing with Jill. I'm wondering if restoration works differently on different people, or if it's because Sonia was a spirit user specifically that she's able to use her magic again, whereas
yeah, I don't know.
We'd have to wait until another non-spirit using Moroi, or former Moroi, now Strigoi, got turned back into a Moroi.
Does that happen?
No. We have another Strigoi turning back into what, restored, but it's another Dampier. So, and it also appears that Lee's aging either has slowed down, or the fact that he just still looks young enough that he can pull off pretending he's still 19. Because I know your aging slows down once you hit adulthood. But I don't know if he has aged 5 years worth of aging, or if it's slowed down a bit.
So turning back from being a Strigoi, your aging slows.
Potentially that, or he could just have a young face. Because Sydney has also wondered throughout the book as well. She's like, it's a bit weird. Clarence is so old and Lee's 19, but I guess it's not too weird for an old man to have a young son. Like, they can still do it, so I guess. So this also just cements as well that Clarence actually is somewhat insane, because he hasn't noticed that his son hasn't aged in however long he was a Strigoi for, and plus 5 years. Because we don't know how long Lee was a Strigoi. And he wants to be a Strigoi again. He misses it. So, yeah, he's very much not like Sonia and Dimitri, who are glad.
Yeah, he crank.
And then he tells Sydney his master plan, because she's like, were you going to kill Jill too? And he's like, no, I love her. And when I become Strigoi again, I'll awaken her too, and she will be my Strigoi queen. And we'll be together forever. And Sydney's like, wow, you've known her a week. That's a bit much. And then Adrian rocks up to apologize to Sydney. And I don't know if she calls out to Adrian or if he just walks in or whatever, but he gets in there. There's a bit of a struggle. Lee wins. He knocks them, he gets them both. He pulls a knife on Sydney, that's right, and he makes Adrian tie himself up. And they're like, why did you slit their throat? You have fangs. And he's like, because alchemists can Moroi can tell if it's a Strigoi bite or a Moroi bite, so I had to cover my tracks. That's why they slit throat. And so they're being held, and he tries to drink from Sydney, because he's like, the only thing I haven't tried yet is alchemist. You're going to be how I get back to Strigoi, but he can't drink Sydney's blood. So it's like, okay, I guess I have to go to plan, I think at this stage, plan K, and get to Strigoi here to try and turn me. So he calls them. They're stuck. Adrian and Sydney are tied up, and they're stuck there, and they're like, we're going to die type thing. No one knows we're here. And the Strigoi, and so then the Strigoi rock up, and Lee's like, please turn me back. Here are your 2 offerings type thing. And so they're like, okay. So one of them is drinking, and they're like, he tastes funny, and he just doesn't end up, the turning doesn't work. And they're like, oh, well, sucks for him. Let's eat now. And they try to drink from Sydney, and they can't. Same thing. Her blood tastes weird. And so they start to drink from Adrian. I think that at this point as well, Sydney's like, oh my God, the bond. Hopefully Adrian's terrified enough that Jill jumps into his mind.
Yeah. Like, Jill notices.
Yep. Hopefully that happens. And I think it's, once Eddie rocks up, that, Sydney and Adrian get free. Eddie rocks up, he's fighting. It's all just a big clusterfuck of whatever. Sydney finds something to use as a weapon, and she finds her fire spell thing, and she's like, it won't work, and she's like, but it's heavy, so I'll throw it. So she did the chant as well. She yelled into flame is like a battle cry, and it set the struggle on fire. And they're like, what the fuck? But it kind of just made her cranky. I think that happened before Eddie got there, actually. That did, because Eddie didn't see it, only Adrian was there. And then Eddie gets there, and so the fight happens. Jill's there too, and Sydney's like, the fuck, why'd he bring Jill? And then she's like, wait, Jill. And then she turns on a tap. And Jill uses water magic to distract the stream, and Eddie kills them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they win.
Yay!
Jill finds out that Lee is dead. He didn't know. Jill didn't witness Lee's part in it, so she's devastated, and then she's even more devastated when she finds out the truth and all that crap. And then the alchemists come, and they're like, what happened, and this and that. They do a cleanup, and Stanton says to Sydney, like, look, you're going to be the alchemist in Palm Springs now. You can lead the school up here. We're getting another Dampier in. We're going to walk to live with Jill, so it's up to you. And Sydney's like, no, actually, I was thinking I could stay at school and Adrian can live here because we're going to do research on this whole spirit Strigoi thing, right? And it'll be good motivation, to get him to help, because Adrian's selfish and he won't help unless he's getting something out of it. So let's do that. And Stanton's like, so you want to keep living with a vampire then? And Sydney's like, oh fuck, no. Well, I just figured that Dampier would live with her and I would have my own room, right? They're like, yes, you will. So Sonia is coming. They know that, and they know that a Dampier girl, and then they find out as well it's Angeline.
Yeah.
And then Abe is there as well. Because of course he is.
Yes, he's everywhere.
And then the book ends with, and in walked Dmitri Belikov. And that's the end of the book.
Dun, dun.
And that's the end of the book. But I liked it. It was a little more upbeat. Like, this book was a lot more upbeat. Like, some dark stuff still happens in it, but it's like still bright and sunny.
Yeah, like it's a very bright and sunny book, and like it's, I don't know, it's more pleasant to read than, not that like Vampire Academy is not good, it's just not as pleasant.
I think part of it as well is Sydney has a very similar sense of humor to you and me, where it's quite dry.
Yeah.
And that comes out quite a lot. Like, again, like, we have to go save Adrian. What, from himself?
Yeah, like
that's her instant response, like, right, okay.
Like, from fucking what?
I know, right?
Yeah. So that's the book. Next week we will be doing the next book in House of Night Season 2 with Addie.
Second to last book.
Yes, the second to last book, and then we're almost done. And then tomorrow night we are doing the Blackwoods, the Blades of Redwater release stream at 11 p.m. on the main channel. And so we will be doing that there. It's our midnight release stream. We're releasing this book to the public, etc. And so that's going to be super fun. yeah, so anyway, that is Bloodlines. And yeah. So
we'll see you next time.
Anyway, yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.